Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show.
Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else.
We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride.
Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse.
It's news, but it's this close to entertainment.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course, it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me in the next hour, former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker and also Conservative Pierre Lord Moylan. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Polly Middlehurst.
Nana, thank you. Well, the top story from the GB newsroom is that there's risk of flying debris and power cuts today, with weather forecasters warning conditions on the roads could disrupt last-minute Christmas getaways. The Met Office has said wind gusts of up to 70 miles an hour has already hit parts of Scotland and northern areas of England, as well as the Midlands. And rail passengers have had to make other plans today, dealing with delays and cancellations, particularly at major London stations. Euston, King's Cross and Paddington all closed today for engineering works. So millions of people then on the roads, and the AA saying drivers can expect a great deal of congestion as people travel to be with their families. A man has been arrested in connection with the death of a woman in a suspected hit-and-run accident in Essex. Marie Theobald and her two dogs lost their lives when walking in Chigwell on Friday. In a statement, her family described the 48-year-old as a loving mother and daughter who would do anything for anyone. A second man has been arrested in connection with the removal of a Banksy artwork in south-east London. A stop sign covered with what looked like 3 aircraft in the shape of military drones was discovered at an intersection, a crossroads as we call it, in Peckham on Friday. A man in his 40s has now been arrested on suspicion of theft and criminal damage, and yesterday a man in his 20s was arrested. He's since been bailed pending further inquiries. The Home Secretary has had to apologise today for joking about putting a rape drug in his wife's drink just hours after announcing government plans to crack down on drink spiking. James Cleverly reportedly joked he puts a little bit of Rohypnol in his wife's drink every night so she doesn't realise there are better men out there. The comments were meant to have been said at a Downing Street party, which are normally off the record, but the Sunday Mirror has broken convention and reported it anyway. The Royal Navy is deploying a warship to Guyana as tensions grow with neighbouring Venezuela in South America. The HMS Trent will take part in joint exercises in the region, the MOD confirming it's all part of the government's defence diplomacy strategy, the UK working alongside the South American nation to ensure its territorial integrity, they say, after a historical dispute with Venezuela reflared over minerals and oil. Here at home, party leaders may be at odds in Parliament, but they are united in spreading festive cheer today. A warning to some viewers, there is flash photography in the next segment if you're watching on TV. In his Christmas message, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, offering the promise of a brighter future, while the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, said the story of Jesus Christ is a reminder that in dark times, hope and love are always worth advocating for. Both men thanked frontline and key workers for their service over the Christmas period.
Christmas is a time of peace, joy, compassion, a time of hope and a promise of a better world. And today, as we look ahead, let's keep that promise of a brighter future burning into the new year. Wherever you are, and whatever you are doing for the festivities, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
As communities across Britain gather together for a period of faith and festivities, I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Throughout the Christmas period, we see the bonds of kinship rekindled as families and friends share in the joy, the hope and the optimism that Christmas provides.
Sir Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak. Now, His Majesty the King will be delivering his second Christmas message from a room decorated with a living Christmas tree for the first time. A photograph has been released ahead of tomorrow's broadcast of the traditional Christmas message. King Charles, a long-term environmental campaigner, so we're told sustainable and natural ornaments adorn his tree, which itself will be replanted at a later date. And a reminder, the King's message will be live here on GB News at 3 o'clock tomorrow, Christmas Day. Now, tomorrow is set to be the warmest Christmas day in more than a century, with the Met Office saying temperatures could reach 14 or even 15 degrees. Forecasters are saying we could also see 16 degrees across parts of Yorkshire today. It means a white Christmas has been ruled out for the country, apart from perhaps northern Scotland. The warmest or the mildest 25th of December on record was 15.6 degrees in 1920. 100 years ago. So, on his way to Brunei, Father Christmas, let's show you live pictures coming to us from NORAD as we monitor Santa delivering his presents to children around the world. He was in Japan a short time ago. He's finished Japan. China is now done. This is the feed from the NORAD Santa Tracker, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, monitoring Santa's movements today, of course, protecting him on his way, making sure he completes his journey on time. On his way to Brunei, as we say right now, we're tracking him throughout the day on GB News. NORAD has been tracking Santa since 1955, after one child phoned up the command centre wanting to know where Santa was. Well, now you know exactly where he is. And guess what? Heathrow Airport has confirmed Santa is due to arrive in the UK just after midnight. It says any passengers carrying carrots in their hand luggage need to be aware they may attract reindeer. You're with GB News across the UK on TV, in your car on digital radio and on your smart speaker. This is Britain's News Channel.
Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 7 minutes to 3 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. Before we go head-to-head, let me introduce you to my panel. Joining me today in a clash of minds, former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker and also Conservative peer Lord Daniel Moylan. Here's what else is coming up today. First, we'll be finding out the latest location of the Santa Claus on this Christmas Eve. And then we'll be joined by two GB News reporters. They'll be going live in location for the two Christmas Carol concerts as hundreds gather up and down the country to sing together today. Isn't that lovely? Then, going head-to-head in a clash of minds, we'll be discussing junior doctors. They finished their latest 3-day strike yesterday. More strikes are planned for the beginning of January, but do you think they're justified or just being plain greedy? The alleged feud between Kate and Meghan has been ongoing for years. Now, experts have commented on an apparent silent revenge. What do you think? I'll be discussing that, going head-to-head with my panellists. That's on the way. In the next hour, I'll be going live with my other two panellists, Simon Danchuk and also Lois Perry. As ever, tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Email gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet me at gbnews. Right, so let's welcome again to my head-to-headers. Going head-to-head in a clash of minds, former Liberal Democrat Mr Norman Baker and also Conservative peer Lord Moylan. Right, well, of course, it is Christmas Eve, and as you know, Santa is going around the world delivering parcels to everybody this evening, which is interesting how he manages it. So with lots more on that, our reporter Theo Chukumba. Theo, so how is Santa doing? Where is he now?
Yes, well, good afternoon to you. So he's on his way to Brunei in Southeast Asia. Been tracking him since 11:05 UK time this morning, and he's been on the move, starting from Lapland, heading towards Australia and New Zealand, on the way to Russia, and then back down again, and then recently last seen in China, but on the way to Brunei. So NORAD, they basically have been tracking him all day. All of those children looking to see their presents. Some will have had them already and others are still waiting. Around 9 hours from now, he'll be in the UK. 1 minute past midnight is when Santa is expected to arrive here in the UK. Busy, busy day. Over 1.3 billion presents have already been delivered today. So if you're one of those lucky young people, it's going to be a good day for you tomorrow. We've been counting down to Christmas, what seems like all year, but it's only a few hours away now. So don't know what you're expecting in your Christmas box this year, but, well, we'll be able to see that tomorrow. But for now, though, only 9 hours until he arrives in the UK. And just finally, they've been tracking Santa since 1955, when one young person called to find out where Santa is. And ever since then, as we've been hearing, he's been tracked. And it's one of those moments everyone's looking forward to. Only a few hours left now.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Theo. Chukumba. Thank you, Theo. I keep doing that too. I shouldn't do that. Yes, but that is Theo Chukumba. He's tracking Santa for us. In any normal instance, tracking would just be really out of order, but when it's Santa, it's fine. Now, Christmas is a time for joy and laughter and an opportunity for communities to come together to celebrate the festive season. Christmas carol concerts are actually taking place all over the UK today as the nation gets into the Christmas spirit. So joining me is reporter Dougie Beattie and also Tony Maguire. They're joining us now. Concert venues. Right, I'm going to start with you, Tony, in Glasgow Cathedral. What's happening there?
Good afternoon. Well, certainly the weather outside here in Glasgow is frightful, but I can tell you that the mood inside Glasgow Cathedral earlier on today was very much quite delightful. This week has seen a numerous number of concerts, carols, and some of the more traditional variety and some of the more modern take, and many of them raising money for cancer charities, as is the way here at Glasgow Cathedral in the run-up to the festive season. Today, of course, being the fourth Sunday of Advent, there was a Mass this morning as well, which I observed along with Minister Mark Johnston. Now, he has been the minister here at Glasgow Cathedral for quite some time, and I had a chance to talk to him quite a bit about all the things that really makes Christmas Christmas. And, you know, his key message this year was very much that remember that there are many of those out there who are going to be experiencing perhaps their first blue Christmas. Maybe it's their first Christmas without somebody, maybe it's their first Christmas away from family, or perhaps, you know, while we shouldn't in any stretch of the imagination diminish the joy of all the young children in the family taking the toy out the box and then playing hours with the box instead of the toy itself. We shouldn't be taking the joy away, but, you know, let's keep one eye on the bigger problems in the world as well. And remember, I guess, we don't have a Thanksgiving in this country per se, but Christmas is our chance to do that. And certainly over the next few days, he hopes many many families will be doing that. And indeed, following that conversation, he recorded a very special Christmas message for GB News viewers around the country. Let's hear what he had to say.
Christmas is a time when we reflect upon the past and we look towards the future. Do you know, something that I like during Christmas time is just people watching. I've had the opportunity, primarily because of my wife Audrey, to sit outside shops and watch people going, and I often wonder what they do and what they work at. And I think when people look at me, they see someone with a reasonably tidy haircut and shiny shoes, and they wonder, well, they maybe can guess the kind of thing I do. However, I had a secret life. When I was younger, I used to be a bingo caller. I used to be a bingo caller in the West End of Glasgow. 2,000 people on a Friday and Saturday night would sit there hanging on my every number. And then at a certain point, someone would win and they would shout, house. And they would win anything from, £800 to £50,000. But the only time that room became all the more engaging was when someone shouted house. My message this Christmas isn't about playing bingo. It's about engaging and taking part. That game and that room became electric when someone fully engaged with what was happening. Can I ask you this Christmas to fully engage with what's happening? To have a sense of, if we're talking about hope, have hope. If we're talking about peace, have peace. If we're talking about goodwill, have goodwill. But you need to be the ambassador for that. It's not going to happen if we all sit in our hands and do very little. The only way that society is transformed is through the activities of good people. So on you go. Go be a good person this Christmas.
And there you go, the message, engage this Christmas. Much in the way, might I add, that the viewers of GB News have engaged with me and all my fellow journalists over the last year. So from here in Scotland, just to close out the day, and indeed the year for me, just like to wish you all Nolach, Crial, Agus, Bir-Iela, Ag Ur. And that's Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year in the old Scots Gaelic tongue.
You show off, Tony. That was great. Thank you so much, Tony. That's lovely. Right, so that's from Glasgow Cathedral. Let's go over to Newtownards now and speak to Doogie Beattie. Doogie, where are you? Whereabout are you exactly?
Well, I'm at St Patrick's Catholic Church in Newtownards. This church is one of the most historical, relevant buildings in Northern Ireland, believe it or not. It was designed by Joseph Hansom, the boy that designed the Hansom cabs in London. But of course, it was built in the miniature style of a cathedral by Lady Londonderry. She was the sister-in-law of Lord Castlereagh. And the Londonderrys were very famous, even across Yorkshire. They were one of the biggest coal miners in Europe at one time. And she had this built so it's when the kings and queens of Europe could come to the Mount Stewart estate just down the road from me, they could come here to worship. But this morning, the morning mass was just the regulars there, and Father Martin O'Hagan is a pretty famous priest here in Northern Ireland. He holds a Sony record deal along with two other priests. In fact, I've been at a few of his concerts, extremely magical to listen to. And I caught up with him earlier on the week when he was speaking about the relevance of Christmas and the gifts that are given, but more about the love of Christ and how it is more fulfilling than that of material goods.
Well, I suppose that there's always an openness, and we try to rejoice in the fact that anyone who wants to engage with Christ and answer his invitation, then something new begins to happen. Perhaps we live in a very distracted world today, so distracted that there is little time to stop, to be still, to think, to experience silence. So the world can be such that our motivation is kidnapped a little bit by the commercial side of things. It's about getting the right balance. The material world can easily invade and offer us a way of happiness, in inverted commas, but it's not true, lasting happiness. The happiness that we are looking for in Christ is something that's everlasting.
And the main Mass, the Christmas Eve Mass, is here tonight at about 6:30. And as with Tony before, I take this opportunity to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you so much, Doogie, and also thank you so much to you there, Tony. Lovely to talk to you. Happy Christmas. Those are our reporters around the country. So this is GB News. If you've just tuned in, 17 minutes after 3 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. Now, coming up, the latest junior doctor strike ended yesterday. This is after 3 days of disrupting during one of the busiest times of the year for the NHS. More strikes are planned on the 3rd to the 9th of January. The prospect of a winter crisis has already loomed over hospitals before junior doctors announced their strikes over the festive period. Now, all of this comes as critics have since labelled the timing of recent strikes as normally unhinged. The question arises as junior doctors' strikes over the festive period, are they justified? I think we should go for a break first, then we'll come back and discuss, otherwise we won't have much time. All right, all right. Well, before I do that, before we go head-to-head in a clash of minds with former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker and also Daniel Moylan, Conservative peer, we're going to be talking about this fabulous Christmas giveaway because we have 3 amazing prizes that are guaranteed to be won by one lucky viewer in our Great British Giveaway. £10,000 cash, tech, which is a phone, and vouchers. And if you haven't already entered, then why on earth not? It's as easy as this.
This is your chance to win cash, treats and tech in our very first Great British Giveaway. There's a totally tax-free £10,000 cash up for grabs. Cash which would help make 2024 a whole lot better. We're also going to send you shopping with £500 worth of vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. What would be on your shopping list? If it's a new iPhone, we've also got that covered too, with the latest iPhone 15 Pro Max, which you'll also receive. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash. Text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 5th of January. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Right, so make sure you join us for that. But this is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, doctors and striking NHS workers. Are they wasting money? And also, are the NHS wasting money on woke diversity roles? That's on the way.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
If you just tuned in, welcome on board. It's just coming up to 24 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. It's time to go head-to-head in a clash of minds. And on the first topic, the latest junior doctor strike ended yesterday. This is after 3 days of disruption during one of the busiest times of year for the NHS. More strikes are planned for the 3rd to the 9th of January. The prospect of a winter crisis has already loomed over hospitals before junior doctors announced their strikes over this period, and all of this comes as critics have since labelled the timing of recent strikes as morally unhinged. The question arises, are junior doctors' strikes over the festive period justified? Well, right, going head-to-head in a clash of minds, I'm joined by former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker and also Conservative peer Lord Daniel Moylan. Daniel, I'm going to start with you. They're asking for 35%, which I don't really see ever happening. I don't even think they do. Do you think that the timing of these strikes is really just a bit out of order?
I don't think the strikes are justified at all. I think the public has lost sympathy with junior doctors completely over all of this. The fact is that they generally come from well-educated backgrounds. They're often public school people have been to public school. They're very middle class, and they have a career that will bring them, traditionally, is a career that pays you not terribly well to start with, and then you get paid very well later on. They want to be paid like junior bankers because they've got mates who've left university with them who are bankers now. They want to be paid the same as them. Well, you need to have a complete restructuring of salaries in that case. And the fact is, you know, a 35% demand is completely exorbitant. And we know from what they've said, let slip, what they've let slip, that some of their leaders are really doing this because they want to bring the government down. That's why they settled in Scotland for a much more reasonable percentage rise, because they don't have a problem at the SNP. But they have a problem with the Tories, and this is really just Arthur Scargill in scrubs. I mean, it's dangerous and mad.
Norman?
I'm not sure I'd ascribe a political motive to what's happening, but let me just say on the arrangements for paying junior doctors, there's always been a tacit understanding between the government of the day and those engaged in important social tasks such as firefighting or hospital work, that people don't go on strike except in extreme circumstances, and in return the government of the day makes sure they're properly paid. Of course, in terms of the police cannot go on strike. So that's been a kind of unwritten agreement. So the question really comes as to whether or not you believe that the government has exploited that situation to underpay junior doctors, or whether you believe that junior doctors are pushing the envelope far too far in what they're asking for. Now, they are working 48 hours a week or more. They are paid sometimes as little as 32,000, but Daniel's right to say that they have got a career path ahead of them. And it's also the case that there's a Hippocratic oath which says you shouldn't inconvenience people you're supposed to be looking after. That's what doctors do. They save lives. And undoubtedly the NHS will suffer, and people will have their operations cancelled and so on, sometimes for months as a consequence of this action. So I'm unhappy with the junior doctors being on strike. I think it's unfortunate that this is still carrying on. 35% is unrealistic, but I don't think the doing this for political reasons. I think they're doing it for money.
Well, I can tell you this, the union boss, so of the PCS, that's Mark Sawatka. He's the PCS of the Public Commercial Services Union, so he looks after the civil servants and people like that. He actually said that he would have loads of strikes and bring Britain to its knees. That's what he said. And so I do believe that, I mean, just from that, as a boss of one of the unions, they are all striking sort of in unison.
Well, he may have said the same thing with the Labour government. I mean, it happens to be the government at the moment.
Well, he hasn't, no. He has said this recently.
Yes, indeed, but what I'm saying is
about the strike. So I'm just saying that when he said he's doing things as a political motive, I'm just pointing out that actually there does appear to be in many instances.
Well, I think what I'm saying is that I accept he said that. What I'm saying is he may well have said that in a situation where there were a Labour government rather than a Conservative government. I think he's pushing the envelope for his members, as it were, in an unrealistic way. But nevertheless, we have to settle this. They have to settle this, and there has been a standoff in a way between the junior doctors and the health secretaries we've had, because it's gone on for a long time now, and that's unfortunate. We used to have something called arbitration, where people used to go and sit in a room with someone independent, and the matters would be solved that way. I don't know why that's not happened in this case.
Well, isn't there a pay board that decide how much the doctors get paid? So the government will give them a load of money, and then it's down to them to determine what the salaries will be, how that money will be distributed. So I get why sometimes the government aren't didn't want to get involved in this, because they've got pay bodies to do that.
Well, Norman made a very important point at the start, which he said that there is this sort of tacit understanding that in these important professions, the government would actually respect and take account of what was said by an independent pay review body. Other professions don't get independent pay review bodies, but these sensitive professions do. And my recollection is, and I've been trying to look it up on the phone, sorry, while we've been talking, but their recommendation was very much lower than anything close to 35%. And this independent pay review process needs to be respected by both sides if it's to last. Because if all that ever happens is that what one side says, no, we're not, why have the process? Then you'll just have the government setting a figure out of thin air to suit the budget, and people will then go on, you'll have more strikes, more dissatisfaction. So 35% is way off what any independent review, and they're making it a condition that they won't talk. Remember, it's not the government refusing to talk to them simply. They're refusing to talk to the government unless the government more or less agrees in advance that that's the ballpark they should be discussing, which I just think is mad. And I do think it's politically motivated, actually. At the top, because these are very, very left-wing. This is a union. Remember, the British Medical Association is a trades union, effectively, and it has a section for junior doctors. And the people running the junior doctors section are all sort of middle-class left-wingers, and they have political motives, I think.
Do you think that really, for this sort of work, there should be no striking? They shouldn't be allowed to strike?
No, I'm very uncomfortable with
But with the condition that, obviously, there'll be a pay review body that they don't listen to anyway, that will ensure that their pay goes up and so on and so forth.
Well, we had that understanding with nurses for a long time, in fact, and they've broken that now. And I think that's a bad move on their part.
Why is that bad?
I think it's a bad move on their part, but I think the idea that you agree as a trades union that you will avoid strikes if you have an independent pay review body that isn't the government just setting the pay, but actually has looks at it. I think that is a very good model, and it really saddens me to see it starting to break down, especially in the health sector. But I will say also, I'm not terribly comfortable with the idea of banning strikes, because
but just for those sort of
but just for those, and then just for somebody else. So we have that understanding with the police. I think the police are a very, very special case. They've always understood that, like the army, they're not going to go on strike.
Other countries would say they're on the same level.
Yeah, but you could say they're on the same level, but then where do you stop? Do you ban? Now, we've got limitations. We have new legislation which allows the government to say that there'll be a certain level of service provided, and that the trade unions have to provide that. I did go along, I mean, I'm personally, nobody listens to me in the House of Lords, but, I didn't sort of create a great fuss about that, but I'm entirely comfortable about it, because where does it actually stop? People do have a right to strike, and they have a right to, in my view, to collective bargaining. You need to be careful about how you meddle with that, because you're opening up a big door.
I think we're in danger of agreeing, actually, on this particular matter.
So do you think then, Norman, finally then, do you think that junior doctors are being greedy? 35%.
I think they're being unrealistic if they expect 35%.
Greedy,
I mean, they've
isn't it?
pitched. Well, I don't want to use the word greedy.
Well, that
I
is
think
greedy.
they're being. I think they're being. Well, they don't expect to get 35%. They've pitched that there, and they expect to get rather less. I think they're being unrealistic. But I just want to come back on the point about
Very
strikes.
briefly, we've got about 20 seconds.
I don't think it's right for the government to start telling people they've got to go to work. I think it's a very dangerous road.
Why
and
not?
Because
we're
it won't
paying
work.
for them. Listen, the public are paying for these people, and really what we should be doing...
Not on the days they strike.
You can't withdraw the right to strike in this country.
I'm not saying withdraw the right to strike in this country. I'm saying withdraw the right to strike for certain professions, but with the proviso of some sort of agreement as to how you'll be paid incrementally. I think that has to be it for services just like the police. They have that, as do the army, and I think that the NHS is one of those things. Listen, what do you think? Get in touch. GBViews@gbnews.com. Tweet me at GBNews. We're talking pronouns and also wokeness in the NHS. But first, let's get your latest news with Ray Addison.
Cheers, Nana, and Merry Christmas to you all. It's 3:32, our top stories this hour. There's a risk of flying debris and power cuts, with weather forecasters warning that the conditions could disrupt last-minute Christmas getaways. The Met Office says gusts of up to 70 miles an hour will hit parts of Scotland and northern England. Rail passengers have been dealing with delays and cancellations, with major London stations, Euston, King's Cross and Paddington, closed for engineering works. Millions of people are on the roads today, with the AA saying that drivers can expect lengthy jams as people travel to be with their families. Well, a man has been arrested in connection with the death of Marie Theobald. The 48-year-old and her 2 dogs were killed in a suspected hit-and-run while walking in Chigwell on Friday. In a statement, her family described her as a loving mother and daughter who would do anything for anyone. A second man has been arrested in connection with the removal of a Banksy in south-east London. The artwork, a stop sign covered with 3 aircraft that look a bit like military drones, was discovered at an intersection in Peckham on Friday. A man in his 40s has been arrested on suspicion of theft and criminal damage. Yesterday, a man in his 20s was arrested. He's since been bailed pending further inquiries. And the King will deliver his second Christmas message from a room decorated with a living Christmas tree for the first time. King Charles is a long-term environmental campaigner, so sustainable and natural ornaments are hanging from the tree, which will be replanted at a later date. You can watch the King's message here on GB News at 3 p.m. on Christmas Day. Well, you can find more on all of those stories on our website, gbnews.com. Now let's get straight back to Nana.
Well, coming up, though, speaking of royals, Princess Kate, is she seeking silent revenge? Find out more before 4.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. It's fast approaching 38 minutes after 3 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. It is head-to-head in a clash of minds. Joining me to do that is Norman Baker and also Lord Daniel Moylan. Right, so next topic. Now, this one always gets me. A teacher has been banned from the profession and sacked from their job after misgendering a 17-year-old pupil. The teacher in question refused to use a male pronoun to reference a biologically female student and also advised them against irreversible surgical treatment, which I think is wise. He was later referred to the Disclosure and Barring Service, that's the DBS, and subsequently he was informed that he would be banned from working with children. This week, the government issued a long-awaited trans guidance stating that teachers should not be compelled to use a different pronoun if a child decides they want to change their gender. So what do you guys think? Right, it's time to go head-to-head in a clash of minds. Joining me, of course, former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker and also Conservative peer Lord Moylan. Norman, I'm going to start with you. What do you make of this?
Well, I mean, it's completely over the top for the teacher to be banned from working with children. I mean, he's not been guilty of any horrendous abuse or anything else, and that's a very strong step to take. And I think the decision to do this from this quango is completely unrealistic and wrong. And the guy's been teaching, as I understand it, 16, 17 years without any problems, and for this suddenly to blow up in this way, I think is inappropriate. I mean, I do think the government guidance could have been issued earlier and teachers have been in a difficult position up until now. It would have been helpful had it come out earlier. Also, 17-year-old is very close to being an adult. However, having said that, assuming that he was just following the government guidance, actually, which had now been issued, then no offence, as it were, was committed. The only issue I've got, because we don't know the full facts here, but he also warned the pupil against irreversible surgical treatment. Now, I happen to believe that's appropriate for a 17-year-old to be warned against that, but the issue is whether it's because I don't think you should take decisions like that which may affect your later life. However, that may be a question for the parents to issue that warning rather than teachers.
So what do you think then, in general, misgendering, is it a big deal? What's your stand on it?
It's been blown up. It's also becoming a fashion, actually, to go down this particular route. Some people clearly have got genuine issues inside themselves, which they have to try and resolve, even at that age. Others, I think, are kind of almost jumping on a bandwagon.
But why should you be forced to go along with something that you don't agree with, just to satisfy somebody else's delusion? Daniel?
Yeah, I think that's the really important fundamental point here, is that the way in which the left liberal, wokist, identitarian establishment has advanced itself is through taking control of language. So saying there are certain words that are banned, certain phrases, you've got to talk in a certain way. And we really have to stand up to that. Nobody has the right to tell me what language to use. That's my choice. That's part of my freedom. And it may be the case that sometimes I say things people are upset by, but it's my choice is to use the language I want to use. And I would not use gender-type language to somebody who claimed this, because I don't actually believe that gender exists. I believe it's a complete fiction that's been made up in the last 20 or 30 years that never existed before. When I was a child, gender, the word gender, applied to nouns. In French, you had to learn whether nouns were masculine or feminine and make the adjectives agree with them. You still do. But gender was never applied to people. People had a biological sex, and they were male or female. And I think that reflects the underlying reality. I also think that I would go further than Norman. I would say that up to a certain age, and I'm open to discussion about what that age should be, I think irreversible surgery or chemical treatment should be prohibited, because I don't think children have the ability to make that decision consciously and safely for their future. And we now have yet more attempts in Parliament to ram through a conversion therapy ban bill, which would probably make what I'm saying at the moment illegal, and I'd be bundled off your show by some police guys outside telling me I'd upset somebody. It's not illegal at the moment to say what I'm saying, but it might be. And we're having more attempts to do that. It's the wrong direction. The right direction is to get back to what is the reality of things and to protect children from what is, in fact, a huge lie.
Yeah, I'm just astonished that this should be taken so seriously in a way that somebody could potentially lose their ability to teach young people just because he's used the correct word actually to define something, but in this other person's mind, they want him to say something else.
Well, I mean, he has lost his job. I mean, let's face it, he's no longer able to teach. That is what's happened to him.
But it's absurd.
Well, it probably is, and I say probably because we don't know the full facts. I actually agree with Daniel. You might be surprised to know that I think that people should not be allowed to engage in surgery, which is irreversible, until they are adults competent to be able to say that that's what they want, and children shouldn't be allowed to do that. The only issue I come back to the point is that he warned the pupil against irreversible surgical treatment. Now, I imagine he's trying to be helpful, but the fact is that teacher's role to do that, or is it the parent's role to do that?
He's obviously expressing concern, but it's not a sackable offence, is it?
It's not a sackable offence, no.
And somebody needs to tell the child, if his parents or somebody else hasn't told them, that surgery is irreversible. And there's a lot of people who now try to detransition who deeply regret it and are in a bad way, and I've spoken to many of them, in fact. So I think it's really important that schools get a handle on this and actually get the parents involved and stop all this nonsense about pronouns, this and that. Look, if you're a man, if you're a boy, you're a boy. If you're a girl, you're a girl. And in terms of changing rooms and those sort of facilities whilst you're at school, that surely is sacrosanct. But anyway, what do you think? GBViews@gbnews.com. Tweet me at GBNews. But more on woke, because it's being reported that NHS trusts are spending 6 figures on woke diversity roles. Now, we've heard about this many times, only for conditions to worsen. So they've been spending that money, yet diversity and inclusion has not improved. An annual report saw 8 out of 13 of the NHS's own disabled employees see measures worsen with adequate adjustments to help them carry on out of their roles, which has fallen. There was also a marginal rise in disabled staff experiencing harassment, bullying or abuse from managers at the trust. 3 out of 5 of the highest spending trusts which responded to the requests have seen more indicators worsen or stay the same. So a spokesperson for King's College stated, "We are committed to making the trust a more diverse and inclusive place to work," whilst the spokesperson for Barts Health NHS Trust said, "We serve some of the most diverse communities in the country." Well, let's go head-to-head in a clash of minds. Joining me to do that, former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker, also Conservative peer Lord Moylan. Daniel, it doesn't seem to be getting worse, yet they're spending a fortune on supposedly improving the diversity and inclusivity of the NHS.
Well, there's a big issue here, actually, about money and public services, first of all, which is that, as we're discovering with a lot of public services, the more you spend on them, every marginal extra pound gets less and less. back for you, so that you can spend more on something in the NHS and nothing improves. And then people, or very little improves, and then people turn around and say, it's not working, we need to spend more money on it. And we've got to realise that constantly spending more money on something is not actually getting returns for us, and this illustrates it in a small way. The other thing is about the specific issue, which is to do with equalities, which dates back a lot of it to the Equality Act, which is one of those dreadful pieces of legislation, I think, fundamentally, that needs to be reviewed, and which they use very often as a legal excuse, I would say, for what it is they're trying to do, which goes beyond the Equality Act. So they say, if we don't do this, we could be sued for it because of the Equality Act, and we'd find that we had somebody suing us who'd felt they'd been treated badly. That excuse needs to be taken away. That's the first thing. But it isn't simply the Equality Act. They use it to go beyond that, to promote an agenda of diversity, which creates lots and lots of jobs and gives people quite a lot of power. And I don't work in the NHS, so I can't see it operating day to day, but I suspect many people who did work in the NHS would say that a lot of this is actually getting in the way of us doing the job rather than actually helping us do the job, and the money could be better deployed in patient-facing services.
Which is where it's greatly needed. Norman?
Well, the NHS have said in this newspaper article, which generated our discussion today, they're committed to spending every penny of taxpayers' money wisely, it says here, and on track to cut the number of head office posts, including those involving equality and diversity roles, so they say. They also say it's necessary for legal compliance to have these people in post. Now, I think that the worry I've got, actually, is a different one, which is that if there is a diversity officer, then other people in the organisation say, well, it's not a matter for me, it's a matter for them. And they absolve themselves of responsibility. If we didn't have these people, then people have to look at their own responsibility themselves and take some responsibility for their own actions, rather than passing them over to somebody else in the organisation.
Which is perfectly wise. And what is HR for anyway? Why don't they use their HR department to deal with some of the diversity and inclusion? It's not as if the Trust won't have those. But anyway, those are my thoughts. But what do you think? GBNews@gbnews.com. Tweet us at GBNews. I will get hold of some of these emails soon. But moving on to Princess Kate and Meghan Markle. Yes, have allegedly been in an ongoing feud for years. Prince Harry, in his book Spare, or Where, as South Park called it, commented that his wife Meghan and his sister-in-law Kate had a few disagreements in the early days of his relationship. But who doesn't have disagreements? Whilst Kate has never publicly responded to any of these claims or reports, and neither should she, but royal experts have commented that Kate may silently be standing her ground through her regal and pristine outfits. Well, you're laughing.
What a load of nonsense this story is. I mean, absolute nonsense. I mean, look, first of all, families have disagreements. People disagree across with their in-laws or with their own sisters and brothers. So what? It's a private matter. It's none of our business.
It's not really private, is it?
Well,
it's been on Oprah and it's been on everything else. I mean, it would be had Meghan not gone on about it, but we can't call it private now.
If they want to go on about it in public, that's their problem. We don't have to listen to it necessarily. The second thing is, this is absolute nonsense, this idea of sending secret messages. The idea that because Kate wears a particular outfit or has a particular colour of fingernails or something else, sending a message to Meghan, that's just people making money out of conspiracies about the royal family.
You are married, aren't you, Norman?
I have been married.
You're not married now. You must know women, we power dress. I mean, I think...
Yeah, so what?
Well, do you remember the time when William and Kate split up? The next time you saw Kate was at the helm of a boat with this fabulous, well-fitting top, and she looked amazing. After that...
I don't think William and Kate have split up yet, Nana.
No, but there was a bit... But there was a time when they had sort of split up.
Oh, was there?
Yeah.
Yes, right.
When they had, Kate was seen, obviously doing... She looked fabulous. She went out. She was at the helm of this boat, and she was wearing this tight thing when they were doing some sort of rowing or whatever it was.
She has to look tidy. She's going to be queen one day.
He saw that and he thought, I've got to get this woman back. What do you think? Do you think she's wearing her outfits still?
I think the Princess of Wales is absolutely fantastic.
She is,
I think she's one of the best people in the royal family. I think she's probably the person holding the whole thing together, and she's a great guarantee of the success and prosperity of the royal family in the future, working for us as they do. And I love the way she dresses so beautifully. She is so elegant. I mean, she would be elegant even if she dressed down like Meghan Markle sometimes does. does.
Well, Kate does dress down sometimes.
So does sometimes. She always looks tremendously elegant. I think people love her for that. And if there is one Duchess sitting over in California who is writhing in jealousy about it, that's a small price to pay for the huge pleasure that Kate Middleton brings to the British public at large. Well done, her.
Good for her. I think the only one seeking revenge is potentially, in my view, Meghan. And Confucius said that if you're going to dig, might as well dig yourself two graves if you're going to seek revenge. One for the person you and one for yourself.
Confucius, was it?
Yeah, Confucius.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, look, the idea that she's sending secret messages to Meghan, why would she bother? She's just getting on with being whatever she's being. She's going to be Queen one day, presumably, so she has to look tidy and presentable. That's what she does. And Meghan's decided to live over in California with Harry and whatever else she does over there. The idea that they're sending messages to each other with their clothes is just nonsense.
Well, you don't know women, because I think she's fabulous. I love the way she dresses, and she has taken no notice of all the shenanigans that have been.
She hasn't put a foot wrong. She's learned from.
Carried on with
learned from the Queen. It's amazing that she's learnt from the Queen. She's never put a foot wrong, and I wouldn't say that was true of every member of the royal family currently active.
Certainly isn't.
It certainly isn't. So what do you think then? Kate, 10 points, Meghan, 0, probably.
I agree with Norman, actually. I think it's a nonsense story that she's sending messages, coded messages, through her clothes. She has a much bigger audience than the Duchess of Suffolk. And that's the British public. And I think the British public are actually have come to love Kate Middleton very much indeed.
Well, let's see what you've been saying. You've been getting involved. Les says far too much of our taxes are wasted on the NHS diversity and net zero managers, which equates to mismanagement of funding. Sue says there is plenty of money in the NHS, but it's just not being spent properly. We've got quite a few more emails coming in. Keep them coming. gbviews@gbnews.com. I will read those out throughout the show, but stay tuned because Lois Perry will be joining me as part of my panel alongside. Who have I got with Lois? Oh yes, Simon Danshuk will be here as well. So stay tuned for all of that. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. On the way, my monologue. James Cleverly, not so cleverly. Is it okay to joke about drugging women?
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It is blustery out there, particularly across the northern half of the UK. Very strong gusts of 60, 70 miles an hour could lead to some travel disruption this Christmas Eve, and it's only replaced by further areas of low pressure as we move into Christmas Day. Plenty of isobars on the chart indicating it stays windy. For the rest of the evening time, blustery winds across much of the UK, particularly across northern Scotland, these tending to ease overnight. Further outbreaks of rain for southern parts of England and Wales. Clearer skies across Scotland will allow a touch of frost here, but for most of the cloud cover, it will be mild, 5 to 12 Celsius to start Christmas Day morning. We could see some brighter skies across central northern parts of England and also across northeast Scotland for a time, but then cloudy for most as we move through the day itself. Outbreaks of rain across England and Wales, which could be heavy at times, brisk winds too. Showery rain across Scotland, Northern Ireland, some of the rain falling as snow over the higher ground of Scotland, officially likely to be a white Christmas, but for the vast majority, mild and a wet Christmas, 12, 13 Celsius as a maximum temperature. The good news is, though, it'll be much drier and brighter on Boxing Day. Plenty of sunny spells, wintry showers across the northern half of Scotland on a brisk northerly breeze here, and temperatures back to where they should be for the time of year, but it doesn't last long as further wet and windy weather spreads in for Wednesday.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, this is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I just thought I'd read some of your emails because some more have come through. David on the strikes said at the next general election, the Tories just need to ask the public, do you want to be governed by an elected government or trade union militants? Good question. Graham on strikes, fully agree with you, Nana. They shouldn't be allowed to strike. This is about the NHS. Also, I think they're being greedy and holding the country to ransom. It is disgraceful. And finally, Rob says it was admitted by the leadership that this was political. Similarly, surely those whingers refusing to return to their offices are in breach of contract. Well, listen, all of that coming up. I've got a monologue, not so cleverly, James. Stay tuned, that is on the way next.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, it's 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course, it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing it, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is ex-Labour MP Simon Danchuk.
Nice to be with you.
And also Director of Car 26, Lois Perry. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Ray.
Thanks, Nana. Good afternoon. It's 4 o'clock. I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Our top stories this hour. Police are urging drivers to take extra care on the roads following a number of collisions in the past 24 hours. In Northumbria, there's an appeal for witnesses after 2 teenagers were killed in a crash in Cramlington and a woman and teen died in another incident in Oldham in Greater Manchester. Well, millions of motorists are on the roads this weekend. The AA telling drivers to expect lengthy jams as people travel for their Christmas getaways. The Met Office is also warning of the risk of flying debris and power cuts, with wind gusts of up to 70 miles per hour hitting parts of Scotland and northern England. Rail passengers have been dealing with delays and cancellations, with major London stations, Euston, King's Cross and Paddington, all closed for engineering works. A man has been arrested in connection with the death of a woman in a suspected hit-and-run in Essex. Marie Theobald and her 2 dogs were killed while walking in Chigwell on Friday. In a statement, her family described the 48-year-old as a loving mother and daughter who would do anything for anyone. A second man has now been arrested in connection with the removal of a Banksy in southeast London. The artwork, a stop sign covered with 3 aircraft that looked like military drones, was discovered at an intersection in Peckham on Friday. A man in his 40s has now been arrested on suspicion of theft and criminal damage. Yesterday, a man in his 20s was arrested. He's since been bailed pending further inquiries. The Home Secretary has apologised for joking about putting a rape drug in his wife's drinks just hours after announcing plans to crack down on spiking. James Cleverly reportedly joked that he puts a little bit of Rohypnol in his wife's drink every night so she doesn't realise there are, quote, better men out there, end quote. The comments were said to have been made at a Downing Street reception, which are normally off the record, but the Sunday Mirror broke convention and reported it. The Royal Navy is deploying a warship to Guyana as tensions grow with neighbouring Venezuela. The HMS Trent will take part in joint exercises in the region, with the Ministry of Defence saying it's part of the government's defence diplomacy. The UK is working with the South American nation to ensure its territorial integrity after a historical dispute with Venezuela over minerals and oil. Party leaders may be at odds in Parliament, but they are united in spreading festive cheer this year. Now, warning for those of you watching on television, some of the video we're about to show contains flash photography. In his Christmas message, the Prime Minister offered a promise of a brighter future, while Labour's Sir Keir Starmer said that the story of Jesus is a reminder that in dark times, hope and love are always worth advocating for. Both leaders have thanked frontline and key workers for their service over this Christmas period.
Christmas is a time of peace, joy, compassion, a time of hope and a promise of a better world. And today, as we look ahead, let's keep that promise of a brighter future burning into the new year. Wherever you are, and whatever you are doing for the festivities, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
As communities across Britain gather together for a period of faith and festivities, I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Throughout the Christmas period, we see the bonds of kinship rekindled as families and friends share in the joy, the hope and the optimism that Christmas provides.
Well, the King will deliver his second Christmas message from a room decorated with a living Christmas tree for the first time ever. A photograph has been released ahead of tomorrow's broadcast. King Charles is, as we know, a long-term environmental campaigner, so sustainable and natural ornaments are hanging from the tree, which will be replanted at a later date. You can watch the King's message here on GB News at 3 p.m. on Christmas Day. Well, tomorrow is set to be the warmest Christmas day in more than a century, with the Met Office saying that temperatures will reach 14 or even scorching 15 degrees. Forecasters saying that we could also see 16 degrees across parts of Yorkshire today. It means a white Christmas has been ruled out for most of the country, apart from northern Scotland. The warmest 25th of December on record was 15.6 degrees way back in 1920. And Father Christmas is on the move again. His journey delivering presents to children around the world now well underway. If you're watching on TV, you can see live footage now of the NORAD Santa tracker. The North American Aerospace Defense Command is monitoring his movements, and it shows that he's currently on his way to Burma. So far, he's delivered over 1.7 billion presents to children all over the globe. And Heathrow Airport has confirmed that Santa's due to arrive in the UK just after midnight. It says any passengers carrying carrots in their hand luggage should be aware that they may attract reindeer. Be careful out there. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying, play GB News. Now let's get straight back to Nana.
Well, it's fast approaching 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I like to call this one Not So Cleverly, James. Home Secretary James Cleverly, the man who has been giving it all the talk about cracking down on drink spiking, came out with this comment about his wife. He said a little bit of Rohypnol in her drink every night was not really illegal if it's only a little bit. He then laughed and went on to say that the secret to a long marriage was ensuring your spouse was someone who is always mildly sedated so she can never realise there are better men out there. Yet only hours before, on Channel 4, he said this.
Updating the law to make it more relevant, to make it explicit to spiking, so that police officers can understand it and deploy it, so that people hear that it is completely unacceptable and we are cracking down on it. But as well as the legislation, of course, we are doing a whole load of other things, training, awareness. I've got teenage boys, and amongst their friendship group, it's well known that this is a prevalent problem. And we are going to get, we have got to crack down on this. We've got to give the police the powers that they need, modern, up-to-date legislation, not something from the Victorian era. Well, the sad truth is that women in particular have been victimised for centuries. But it's not inevitable, it's not acceptable, and we are certainly not just going to pretend that that's just a byproduct of the modern world, because it isn't and it mustn't be.
How can anyone take him seriously? Dear God, what was he thinking saying that? OK, now I like a joke or two, and perhaps if he'd said this privately to a group of lads, he may have got away with it. It's, you know, that's not to say that men don't get spiked and that some women wouldn't also find his comments amusing. But how bad is his judgment if he thinks that this is an appropriate thing to say in front of a widely female audience in Downing Street after making calls to give harsher punishments to those who spike drinks? A spokesperson for the Home Secretary said, in what was always understood as a private conversation, James, the Home Secretary, tackling spiking, made what was clearly meant to be an ironic joke, for which he apologises. I mean, previously, James has described tackling violence against women and girls as a personal priority and called spiking a perverse crime. So which one are you, James? But his comments are also making light of drink spiking has also handed a beating stick to Labour, whose senior figures called his comments appalling. Alex Davies-Jones, Shadow Minister for Domestic Violence and Safeguarding, said it was a joke. Is the most tired excuse in the book, and no one is buying it. If the Home Secretary is serious about tackling spiking and violence against women and girls, then that requires a full cultural change. The banter needs to stop, and it has to start at the top. Well, Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper said spiking is a disturbing and serious crime which is having a devastating impact on young women's lives. It is truly unbelievable that the Home Secretary made such an appalling joke on the very same day the government announced new policies on spiking. OK, so here's where I stand on it. Spiking someone's drink is tantamount to poisoning. It's a wicked and terrible thing to do. It is a complete invasion of someone's body and should be properly dealt with by the legal system. And I can't see any way that I would find this amusing. With over 6,700 reported cases of spiking since May last year in England and Wales, including almost 1,000 of them by needle, it's just not funny, James. Police are receiving over 500 reports of spiking each month, and in the main, women are the victims. What a stupid thing for Home Secretary to say about a joke, especially at this time of year when bars and nightclubs, which is where most of these incidents occur, are at their busiest. Serial killers like Stephen Port and rapists alike have used that very drug, Rohypnol, to ensnare their victims. Not so cleverly, James. It looks like it's home, James, for you. Time for Home Secretary number whatever. But before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is it OK to joke about spiking women? As Home Secretary James cleverly makes a joke about it, what do you think? Just hours after the government introduced measures to tackle the issue. Then at 4:50, it's World View. We'll go across live to Los Angeles with Paul Dudridge, the host of the Politics People podcast, to get the latest on 2024 and, of course, the presidential election. Plus, is Joe Biden on his way out? Not literally, but maybe he is. His impeachment is gathering pace as he continues to be wrapped up in controversy surrounding his son, Hunter. That's all coming up. Stay tuned. It's in the next hour. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. You can email gbnews@gbnews.com or tweet me at gbnews. Right, so let's get started. Let's welcome again to my panel former Labour MP Simon Danczuk and also political commentator and director of Car 26, Lois Perry. Simon, a little bit of your shoulders in Lois's shot. You need to bring yourself to me, boy. Come this way.
Out of my shot.
Come on, boy. Come over.
Well, right, yeah.
Right, well, we've started. Well, what do you think? Simon Danczuk, I'm going to start with you. Is it time for another Home Secretary? I don't know what number we're on now.
No. Well, I think it's obviously a very serious issue. They are right to crack down on it and take more action about it. But the guy was making a joke. I'm with him on this. He was making a joke in private. And
he's not in private, though. Let's be honest.
No, it was private.
I know. Sorry, let me finish. Sorry. Private means that you're maybe with friends and family. That's in my view. It doesn't mean that you're at 10 Downing Street talking to the press. Okay. That's pretty stupid. That's pretty
But everybody
unprivate.
would know that it was a joke. And Labour to come out there and say, oh, that's an excuse calling it a joke. Well, that's exactly what it is. It might be an unsavoury joke. Some might not appreciate it. Many people are faking astonishment and disgust at it. But the reality is he was telling perhaps a bad joke, but nevertheless, it was a joke. And I think we should forgive him.
We can forgive him, but what about the timing? I mean, how stupid do you have to be to go out having told people how serious the offence is and then come out and say that? That's pretty stupid.
Well, I mean, you know, it was a joke. I mean, and I'm saying this as someone who has been spiked and woke up with somebody at the end of my bed having said that they'd been with me and I had no recollection of it whatsoever. Having said that, that was horrific and affected me immensely. I still think that you should be able to make jokes. I really,
So
really
if I joke about it to you after you tell me the story of it... No, hang on, wait, let me give you the timing of this. So you tell me about it, and then I then make a joke of it. Hang on, would you find that funny? No, answer the question. Would you find that funny?
No, I'm answering the question. If you made a joke about it on the back of me having just told you that information, I think that it was personal to me. But he wasn't being personal. He was talking about his wife. Look, it was inappropriate, but you know...
But you've just admitted it, though.
Things are very, very serious.
You can joke, but if you're Home Secretary, first of all, you have a level of responsibility.
He made a mistake.
And secondly, you have just made a comment telling people the very opposite of the thing you're saying, and now you're making light of it. And there are people who are victims of this thing, and it's
just not to the. He wasn't making light of it to the public. He wasn't a sort of a public information statement. And the reality is, as you know, it's just like being in the media at top level of politics, like he is. You're dealing with some massive, serious issues. He has made a mistake. His timing is terrible.
Maybe he feels his girl is
just like being in the media. Wow.
maybe he just
woman. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe he just wants to go.
He's probably had enough.
Look. Okay, you're right. The timing in terms of policy announcements and everything was unfortunate, but I do think being able to make jokes about things is so important.
We will talk about that. We will talk about that with the debate. But the question I'm asking you then is with regard to, you know, I don't know what we're on now. Home Secretary 9, is it 9? I think it's 9.
I know. When I was a kid, I could name all of the cabinet because I was a bit of a strange kid. But you know, I couldn't now. I literally couldn't. It changes so rapidly.
Well, I can. They're evolving, but it's what they do that I don't know of. What they're doing. So one is now Home Secretary, then that one is Education Minister. Now that one is this and that one. Then there's something else, and
it's actually moving around.
It's like a carousel, but nothing gets done. It just keeps moving.
Musical
every time there's something for them to do, they go, "Let's spin the carousel. We don't want to do anything. Let's spin the carousel. You move to there. You move to there. We'll start again."
You might have had a couple of glasses of champagne, Nana. Do you think that might have been the problem here?
Do you think, though, perhaps do you think perhaps that he needs to go now because of what he's demonstrated?
I don't think it's a resigning issue.
You don't think so?
He will not go anywhere. I don't believe that for a minute. The Prime Minister will forgive him. He'll stay where he is.
Well, Rishi will forgive anything.
Hopefully, Christmas is in the way, so everybody will have moved on from it by... I could be completely wrong of this. It's probably gone by tomorrow, but I think Christmas is helpful to him. We're all into Christmas. We'll come out of it the other side and he'll still be there.
But what does that tell you about his judgment?
Oh, well, there is an issue
about it. He doesn't care. He knows he's going to lose the election on the 3rd of May. He knows he's going. He knows he's handing the baton over to Keir Starmer. They're two parties. They're one party. It's all planned. It's all absolute theatre.
This is a guy who wants to be Prime Minister, who wants to be leader of the Conservative Party.
James Cavalier.
Yeah. This has probably reduced his chances of getting that job.
He doesn't care. He's a multi-millionaire.
No, I actually really like him, and I'm very disappointed that he would, with his judgment, to do such a thing then. I think he could have been wiser. You know, we all crack jokes. He seems like a great guy.
Well, Nana and I are going to be hanging out with him in January.
Yeah. Well, he probably won't want to talk to me. Listen, James. Listen, James, I couldn't let you off the hook, James. I mean, that was just a completely ridiculous thing to say after what you just said. So I'm afraid I had to put you in my monologue. I had written a very nice Christmassy one, but you gave me the option. So unfortunately, that's what happened, and we'll be talking about it later. But it's just fast approaching 18 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online, and on digital radio. On the way, coming up, World View. We'll cross live to Los Angeles and speak to the host of the Politics People podcast and get the latest there. And then up next, though, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm afraid, no, James, you're not off the hook. Is it okay to joke about spiking women? I've got a poll up right now on X asking you that very question. Send me your thoughts, gbviews@gbnews.com, or tweet me at GBNews. The question is it okay to spike women? Or actually, is it okay to spike anyone's drink? Cast that vote now. Back in a moment.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 21 minutes after 4 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? It's fine that we're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It's Christmas Eve. I know, it's so exciting. I've actually been around the shops buying stuff quickly before I got here. But listen, lots of you have been getting in touch regarding the discussion with James Cleverly. Kyle says, firstly, I love your show. Thanks, Kyle. Yeah. Secondly, I think James Cleverly should resign. The making a joke in private or public doesn't wash. Would he joke about rape? Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's not funny at all. Lorraine says, no, no, no. There are some things you just don't joke about. Yeah, and Daphne says, no, 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 not a joke, not funny, idiot. Get rid of him, and I'm the unwokest woman. Oh, and if I was his wife, I'd give him a slap. Love your show. Yeah. Can you imagine? James! I don't think she will. But it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, is it OK to joke about spiking women? It's as Home Secretary James Cleverly apologises for joking about spiking his own wife just hours after the government introduced legislation to battle the issue. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it OK to joke about spiking women? Well, joining me to discuss is journalist and broadcaster Julie Cook, former Brexit MEP Belinda de Lucy, former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker, and Conservative peer Lord Daniel Moylan. OK, so I'm going to start with you, Julie. Talk to me about this. What's your thought on this?
I don't think it's ever okay, and I think what he's done is incredibly wrong, because whether it's in jest or it's about his wife or whatever, he is the Home Secretary and he is above reproach. It's all very well people saying, oh, comedians joke about this all the time. He's not a comedian. He's the second most important person in this country, and no, he shouldn't joke about it. He shouldn't joke about it at all. OK, let's go to Belinda de Lucy. Belinda, your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are basically, look, he wasn't joking about rape. We have to look at the facts here. He wasn't joking about rape. He was actually joking about himself and praising his wife in the joke. He was making fun of himself. So the joke was not directed at women. He was not joking about using Rohypnol to use, abuse or rape women, which would have been, completely horrific. The joke was on him. It was completely bad taste and inappropriate. My concern would be his naivety and the fact that, as Home Office Minister, he has an obligation to be responsible for the words that come out of his mouth to journalists. I haven't been in the media political world for very long, Nana, and I'm a tiny, tiny fish in comparison. But my goodness, if I was talking to journalists, I would be wary of my words. But the hysteria that I've been reading about him being a danger to women and about him joking about rape, I think is taking it too far. Spiking women's drinks is evil. Only the scum of the earth, incelly weirdos do it, and they should be locked away for a very, very, very long time. And it was really unfortunate he used the drug Rohypnol, and of course ketamine's used, sedatives are used. 600 reports to the police from women of having their drinks spiked a month. It is a real thing, and it ruins so many lives. I have 4 teenage daughters, and unfortunately their behavior has had to change, because albeit a tiny, tiny minority, of course, I love and respect men, but it is a tiny minority, still significant enough to change the behavior of my daughters' lives when they go out for a drink now. So it is a serious thing. I completely get that. And the timing of it was completely stupid. I was so surprised and disappointed that he did that. And I'm no defender of the Tories. You know that, Nana. I don't vote for him myself. But I do think we need to remember the facts. He was not joking about rape. he was joking or using the drug to hurt or abuse women. He was joking about himself being not good enough for his wife.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, self-effacing, and he was, you know, it was humour, but he is, even if he calls it a private meeting, or they're calling it that, if you're speaking to the press and the press are involved, and as I understand it, there's mostly women there, that's just not really wise. Norman Baker.
I think it was a terrible thing to say for anybody, actually, but particularly for a Home Office Minister. And I speak as a former Home Office Minister myself, when you learn to be very careful about matters which are particularly within your own department, as this is. And for him to make that sort of joke, in inverted commas, no joke about it, at the same time as the government is bringing forward much needed legislation, is just clodhopping beyond belief. But let's face it, he's had form in clumsy comments. It wasn't very long ago he insulted gratuitously Stockton, calling it a that's expletive deleted, expletive deleted whole, and you then said, oh, I didn't mean that, I was talking about the MP. Well, whole and MP don't sound very similar to me. So he seems to be willing to sound off in a way that's most inappropriate for someone so senior in government, and I don't think it's appropriate for him to be in his position at the moment, frankly.
Lord Daniel Moylan.
Well, I've known and worked with James for a long time, and I think everyone would agree he's the nicest of guys, actually. He's probably learnt a lesson now, which is the great lesson of modern politics, which is you should never, ever tell a joke, ever, in any circumstances, because there is bound to be somebody out there who takes offence at it, and you will get the prospect of Harriet Harman and the Fawcett Society and all sorts of people behaving like they were Lady Bracknell in an Oscar Wilde play, and it just isn't worth the trouble. The other thing is, of course, we've all started jokes, and then without realising, it dawns on us halfway through the joke that the punchline is not going to land very well. So, but it's too late to pull out of it by then. I suspect that's what happened with James here, and he shouldn't have done it, and it obviously hasn't worked out terribly well for him. But the great thing is, you can't make any jokes at all nowadays. It's a very serious and dull world.
I don't think that that's fair to say that. You can make jokes, but that is some joke.
And who isn't offended by a joke? I mean, you say it's inappropriate to make these remarks, and I'd agree with that. I don't think he should have made this joke. But the whole point of jokes is that they're a play on inappropriateness. When you ask, why did the chicken cross the road? It's because it's sort of odd and funny that a chicken should be crossing the road in the first place. So inappropriateness is the essence of jokes, isn't it?
Well, it can be, but then you have to also use your common sense. And I know what you said about pulling out of a joke, so he started it, but then he didn't just stop there. He started it, and then he went on. He carried on and embellished it a bit. So he then laughed and went on to say the secret to a long marriage was ensuring your spouse was someone who is always mildly sedated.
The other thing is
so
about this thing about, can I just say about the press? Yes, of course, if you make a remark to the press, you expect it to be reported. But at the same time, it's also the case that journalists are, in certain circumstances, like when they're invited to a party, are willing to come on terms that they're switching off, that nothing said here is on the record, they're switching off, they're not at work. And so I think to say that it was simply because it was in front of journalists who expected to be reported, I think is you can still be private with journalists.
Julie, are you buying that? You can still be private with journalists at Downing Street joking about something after being very serious about it earlier?
No, I don't. And he's meant to be media savvy. He's in an incredibly high up position. He should know better. I'm a journalist. Journalists never switch off. We've always got our ears open. He knows that.
All right, well, I won't have you to my party.
That day, he's talked about date rape and how it needs to be taken more seriously. To then joke about it is just absurd. It's almost like the Tories have given up and don't seem to care anymore about how people view them.
I know, it does seem like that, but we're on to Home Secretary number. Does anyone know? What number are we on? Let's see. What do you think? Is it 9, Belinda? Are we on number 9?
I think it's about 9. And the last thing we need now, even though I would way prefer Suella as Home Secretary, the last thing we need now, the country is another Home Secretary. We need stability at the moment. And I would say this, I don't think there's anything wrong in comedians and in jokes being made about difficult, messy, awful situations. I remember the horrific jokes being made about Diana. So, straight after her death in private, they were awful. But we're humans. We can laugh. It was the timing of it, that he was trying to be taken seriously over the Rohypnol date rape drug and then making light of this coercive drug in journalists. That to me was just stupid. But I do not think he was he was targeting women or demeaning women's experience at all with the joke. I just think it was badly timed.
So, Norman Baker, yes or no, can you joke about spiking women's drinks?
I don't think you can, and I don't think he's learned his lesson as Daniel thinks he might have done, because he didn't learn his lesson after those remarks about Stockton. And I'd like to know what to pick up one of your viewers. What does Mrs. Cleverly think about that?
I'd love to know. Daniel, yes or no, can you joke about spiking someone's drink?
No, you can't joke about anything. Not if you're a politician. Never do. Give it up. Stop. Don't make jokes. Don't be funny. Be dull. Be boring.
Julie, can you joke about that? Yes or no?
No, you can't. As we've said, we know the statistics. Oh, well, we don't know the statistics. That's the point. They could be even worse than we think we know. It's a really big problem at the moment for women going out, and we can't joke about it. We need to take it more seriously.
And finally, Belinda, yes or no? Just one word answer. Can we or can't we? We joke.
I mean, yes, you can joke about anything, but it had the timing, and you have to read the room with your audience, I would say.
So you can. So the answer is yes from you. All right. Thank you so much to Julie Cook, journalist, former Brexit MEP, Belinda de Lucy, former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker, also Conservative peer Lord Daniel Moylan. So what do you think? Can you joke about spiking someone's drink, in particular women? Can you joke about that? You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, we'll continue with the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is it OK to joke about spiking women? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, Simon Danchuk and Lois Parry, and also I'll be asking you, speaking to my Great British voices. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Ray.
Thanks, Anna. It's 4:32. Our top stories. One of the UK's richest men, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, has agreed to buy a 25% stake in Manchester United. The billionaire, who's a lifelong supporter of the club, says he's pleased the deal has been done and he hopes to unlock the club's full potential. The move will see around £236 million pumped into the team. The deal also includes responsibility for the management of its operations. Police are urging drivers to take extra care on the roads following a number of collisions in the past 24 hours. In Northumbria, there's an appeal for witnesses after two teenagers were killed in a crash in Cramlington, and a woman and a teen died in another incident in Oldham in Greater Manchester. Millions of motorists are on the roads this weekend, the AA telling drivers to expect lengthy jams as people travel for their Christmas getaway. The Met Office, they're also warning of the risk of flying debris and power cuts, with wind gusts of up to 70 miles per hour hitting parts of Scotland and northern England. Rail passengers have been dealing with delays and cancellations, with major London stations, Euston, King's Cross and Paddington, closed for engineering works. A man has been arrested in connection with the death of Marie Theobald. The 48-year-old and her two dogs were killed in a suspected hit-and-run while walking in Chigwell on Friday. In a statement, her family described her as a loving mother and daughter who would do anything for anyone. A second man has been arrested in connection with the removal of a Banksy in south-east London. The artwork, a stop sign covered with 3 aircraft that look a bit like military drones, was discovered at an intersection in Peckham on Friday. A man in his 40s has been arrested on suspicion of theft and criminal damage. Yesterday, a man in his 20s was arrested. He's since been bailed pending further inquiries. You'll find more on all of those stories on our website, gbnews.com. Now let's get straight back to Nana.
I just don't see how that man thought he was going to get away with stealing a Banksy in full view of everybody. Everyone's got a camera these days, doesn't he? No. It's 35 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, World View. We'll cross the line to Los Angeles to speak to Paul Dudridge, the host of the Politics People podcast, to get the latest on what's going on there. Plus, we'll be speaking about Joe Biden. Is he on his way out? Not literally. Well, possibly literally. His impeachment is gathering pace as he continues to be wrapped up in controversy surrounding his son Hunter. But next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is it OK to joke about spiking women?
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
39 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. Now, don't forget, you can download the GB News app and catch up with any of the programmes, or why not stream the show on YouTube. I'm Nana Akua. It's time, though, for our Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, is it OK to joke about spiking women? Now, this comes as Home Secretary James cleverly apologised for joking about spiking his own wife just hours after the government announced legislation to battle the issue. Not really very wise in terms of timing, James. I like the man. I've never met him before. He seems like a decent guy, but... So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it OK to joke about spiking women? Well, let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by former Labour MP Simon Danchuk and also political commentator and Car 26 director Lois Perry. Lois, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah.
Is it OK?
To make jokes?
About spiking women?
Yeah, I think it's OK to make jokes about spiking, not about spiking, but, well, about everything. And one of my great loves, one of my great comedic loves is Don Rickles, who was the...
Who?
Don Rickles.
Is he alive or dead?
He's very dead, actually.
Never heard of him.
In the 1960s, 70s, he was the king of the roast, you know, that Ricky Gervais probably learnt his craft from him in terms of the Golden Globes. And you need to be able to take the mickey. And I'm saying this as someone, and I said this earlier on, who has experience being raped, having been spiked. So you
but
need
that's a
to
big
be
admission.
able,
That's a big admission to say that.
You need to be able to laugh at things, because if you do not have humour, that means that you can't break things down. It means that you can't analyse things. You know, fascist regimes, communist regimes, extreme left, extreme right, they're both the same thing. They hate humour and they hate religion, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, OK, but you're delving into a different layer, and that's not the layer we're on. I'm not saying that you could never joke about anything and that some things...
The timing is unfortunate.
My point is that if you are the Home Secretary and you are in front of the press, even though it's supposedly a private gathering, and you have literally just said that, then you've literally just come out and you're creating a campaign to make sure that people are punished properly for it. I don't really think it's appropriate. Simon, don't you?
I'm really relaxed about this. I'm becoming increasingly more relaxed about it, more we talk about it, actually.
Is that to do with the bottle of Tatterton?
I didn't think we were going to mention
He's been on this. How much have you been drinking? Yeah. He's on that. They gave me one of them.
I'm completely with Lois on this. The guy, I mean, timing isn't good, but he was just making a joke in private. It wasn't for public consumption. Yeah. And I think it's quite dismaying. I think it was one of the Mirror Group papers that broke. It was the Mirror,
yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And I think that's not. It's not really on.
It's not gentlemanly.
No, it's not.
Yeah, but their argument is that it was in the public interest, in particular because of the comments that he's been making. Sorry, let me finish. Sorry. He's saying that it is, of course, of the public interest because, in particular, he was speaking earlier, only moments earlier, about how serious the offence is, and then he's joking about it in public, and I think they're absolutely right to bring it out.
But there are rules and protocols around this in terms of journalists and in terms of politicians, you know. So if you say to a journalist in the lobby, a parliamentary journalist, I'm happy to give you this comment
on lobby terms,
off the record, do not name me, and then they won't name you, and they will stick to that, and they never break that rule. It's a really strong rule. Yeah. And this is sort of quite similar to that. So it is disappointing that a tabloid newspaper has decided to do what they've done, knowing full well that the guy was making a joke. Might have been crass, might have been badly timed. He was making a joke in private. And
I completely agree with you. He made a joke. He didn't drug his wife. And you know, and
joke about it
in front of them. It was a ill-advised, silly boy comment, yeah. And it was supposed to be Chatham House rules. You know, things. I do agree with you that it is inappropriate, especially on the basis of the fact that the legislation and the comments that he'd made, but. Come on, you know.
I totally disagree with both of you. I think it's totally inappropriate to talk about, which I think spiking is tantamount to poisoning. I think it's wicked. I think it's evil. And not only that, but spiking is now not just... Thank you. It's not just about spiking someone in their drink. They are spiking with injection. Sorry, excuse me. They're spiking with injection, and they're spiking without people knowing about this, and the police are not doing very much about it. And in particular, I don't think it's acceptable. This is one thing that I don't think, in my view, is something you can joke about. I get it that I love jokes. I'm somebody who sits with humour, but I don't think I would find it very funny if someone spiked my drink. And all credit to you that you can come back with it and say that you're OK with someone talking about it like that.
Well, I am not OK with people spiking people's drinks, but I am OK with people making jokes in a private environment. Can I just say to you, some of the worst jokes that I've ever heard about the Holocaust have come from Jewish guys that I've been involved with, yeah? And, you know, humour is a way of deflecting stuff. It's a way of dealing with stuff. That, you know, they call it gallows humour.
Yeah, no, I get that.
It doesn't mean that I endorse.
No, I get that. But there are some things I just don't think. I don't find it funny. You know, I just do not find it funny. Somebody saying, "Oh, it's really funny. I spiked my wife's drinks."
Well, I get it. The sad thing is for James Cleverly is that he's implementing a policy which is sorely needed and making it tougher for people who commit these sort of awful crimes, and yet he's lost complete credibility.
Well, that's the other thing. He's lost credibility.
No, I get that.
And I think that, again, is really unfortunate that he's done that for that. But listen, the show's nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voices onto the show. Their opportunity to come on and tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. I've got one of you. Let's go to... Where should we go? Northamptonshire?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, let's speak to Miranda Richardson, not the Miranda Richardson, but the GB News Miranda Richardson. Miranda, what do you think? Is it okay
Queenie.
to joke about spiking people's drinks?
Well,
you run a pub.
You know, I run a pub. I run 2 pubs, and completely inappropriate to make a joke like this for a couple of reasons. I'm with you. Sit with humour. You have to in this industry have a sense of humour, but you know the politicians need to realise it doesn't matter where they are. Nothing stays private for them, whether they think it's a private conversation or not. It's always going to come up. This man is raising 2 sons. You know, we forget that as well. What kind of example is he setting there? It's not clever. With what he wants to do in trying to drive this bill forward and drive these changes forward is so important. And then all you're going to do is completely destroy it. You know, it's tough enough in this industry as it is to keep an eye on people, to make people safe. We have so many rules that we have to follow to make people safe. And yet somebody is joking about drugging his wife, and that seems to be okay. It's not okay. It's not funny. There is definitely a time and a place for humour. And like I say, the politicians need to realise what they say never stays private. Really, when are they going to wake up to that one? Whether you're saying it's off the record or not, somebody's always going to say, and especially something with such a delicate, you know, people have lost their lives due to it, all sorts of things. It's horrendous, and it just wasn't appropriate at all.
No, it wasn't. I mean, there's been murders. What's his name? Stephen Port, I think it was. He murdered men using this particular drug. He's a serial killer. You've had
that's the other thing. That it is men and women.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't just affect, you know, just women. It's men and women. It needs to be something, you know, that it is just a horrendous crime. It really, really is.
It's horrendous. It's taken an even more sinister level that people would inject you as well without your knowledge. Listen, Miranda, thank you so much. Merry Christmas. You're amazing.
Merry Christmas.
Have a good time. Take care, mate. That's Miranda Richardson. She's our great British voice. She says it's never appropriate. What do you think? gbviews@gbnews.com. I await your emails. I'll read some of them out to you. But it's fast approaching 48 minutes after 4 o'clock. And, of course, time to tell you about 3 amazing prizes that are guaranteed to be won by one very lucky viewer in our first ever Great British giveaway. That is £10,000 cash, tech, which is a mobile phone, and some vouchers. So if you haven't already entered, why on earth not? It's this easy.
This is your chance to win cash, treats and tech in our very first Great British giveaway. There's a totally tax-free £10,000 cash up for grabs. Cash which would help make 2024 a whole lot better. We're also going to send you shopping with £500 worth of vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. What would be on your shopping list? If it's a new iPhone, we've also got that covered too, with the latest iPhone 15 Pro Max, which you'll also receive. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB01 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 5th of January. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
So this is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. On the way next, World View. But first, let's get an update with your weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather. It's going to stay unsettled through the festive period, though it will turn calmer and drier as we move into Boxing Day. Low pressure currently dominating the weather pattern, bringing further rain for many through Christmas Day, but a brief respite and that ridge of high pressure bringing dry, sunny weather for many on Boxing Day. This evening, a mixed picture out there. Outbreaks of rain across southern counties of England and Wales. Showery rain as well, Northern Ireland, Northern England. In between, clearer spells under the clearest skies of Scotland, turning chilly tonight, some frost and ice. Elsewhere, generally staying mild, and those winds just easing after what has been a very blustery and mild Christmas Eve. Christmas Day gets off to a bright start, a chilly start across north-east Scotland. Elsewhere, generally quite cloudy, and this area of outbreaks of rain pushes north and eastwards across England and Wales through the day, turning heavy at times. Rain bumping into Scotland will turn to snow over the higher ground, above about 200 possible, giving a white Christmas here. But elsewhere, wet Christmas, mild as well, and breezy, temperatures in double figures. After a cold start Boxing Day morning, it's looking much drier and brighter. Plenty of sunny spells to come, but signs of the next weather system starting to move in across Devon and Cornwall, bringing outbreaks of rain here, and temperatures a little lower for many, but mild air returns as it becomes wet and windy through into Wednesday.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
54 minutes after 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock even, crikey. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. And it's time now for World View. We're going to cross over live to the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Duddridge, to find out what's going on regarding Trump. Let's see. Oh, Paul Dudridge, what a go on. Lots of things happening, aren't there? So talk to me about what's been going on.
Well, just after we finished last week, this extraordinary event took place. The Colorado Supreme Court removed Donald Trump from the ballot in 2024. So Donald Trump at this point is not allowed to even be cast on the ballot. He's not allowed to have his name on the ballot. You can't vote for him in Colorado in 2024. I don't know if you know how it works here, but these electoral college votes that they talk about, there are 538 votes up for grabs, and it's the first candidate to get to 270 votes. 270 gets you past the finishing line, okay? Colorado has 10 of those votes, and so Trump was never going to win that state. It's been a Democrat state for a while. However, the principle is kind of important. A man that's never been charged with, or certainly found guilty of insurrection, is being kept off a Democratic ballot by a Supreme Court, by a state Supreme Court, because he apparently incited insurrection.
It's just absurd, isn't it? You know, what are they going to do, though? Because it's a weird place that we end up with, where we've only got Trump and Biden as the potential candidates. I mean, I find it laughable. They're trying to remove Trump, but of course Biden isn't having a great time either, because now all this stuff with Hunter is coming out. What about him? Are they trying to impeach him now? Because that seems to be gathering pace as well.
Well, exactly, yes. So this month, the Republicans in Congress started an impeachment inquiry. Okay, they've been gathering evidence. They now feel that there will be enough evidence in the new year to formally impeach Biden because of his business connections to Hunter. So that looks like it's going to happen. Also, I just have to say, the minute the Colorado result was announced that Trump wouldn't be allowed on the Colorado ballot, we had Republicans in Texas now attempting to take Biden off the Texas ballot for letting 8 million illegals cross the border since he came to power. The highest number of 8 million in just over 3 years have walked across the border. So what we're seeing is the Supreme Court will sort this out. I can't imagine, mind you, to be fair, it's been such a crazy year. I can't imagine the Supreme Court is going to let this stand. So Trump will be on the ballot. And I can't imagine that Trump is going to actually be successful in winning Colorado, and Biden is not going to be kept off the Texas ballot, and Biden's going to be impeached, but he's not going to be found guilty. All these things. But this is the way, this is political warfare now, as it's going to always be played out in the future. Every president from now on will be impeached. Every president will be taken off ballots in hostile states. This is exactly what's going to happen. They've now discovered these new box of toys that they can play with, and they're going to carry on doing it. This is now how party politics is going to be played in the United States for the foreseeable future.
It seems pretty sad, but it's not dissimilar to the nonsense that's happening here, I suppose. It seems to be a very litigious world now, where the politicians appear to be ad hoc to legal stuff, you know, so the courts can override things. And if Trump does get in, and obviously, can he then get out of all these? Can he have an executive order that makes sure that he doesn't go to prison and all these things?
Yes, in short. Look, we're actually finding out now that he might not even be, he might be protected. The Supreme Court, I think around January the 4th, are deciding whether he was actually protected by presidential privilege anyway for a lot of these charges. Georgia is the only one that's actually just a state-bound prosecution, and the president doesn't have override in that particular state. So that Georgia is the only problem that he might have. But yes, Trump will be able to miraculously get himself out. I don't know why the Democrats are doing this. I do think because of the abortion laws. We've talked about this before. Yeah. I don't think he's going to win anyway. Yeah. They don't need to do this. But look, and the reason why this is important on GB News is exactly to your point. This is how politics is being played out. And what annoys me about this whole thing is that populist and populism is almost a dirty word. And all these people, all these shenanigans, all these lawyers and politicians are forgetting that it's actually the people. And we are treated as if populism is some kind of derogatory, disparaging term.
Well, listen, Paul, it's always a pleasure. Happy Christmas to you. Lovely to speak to you. That is, of course, Paul Dudridge, host of the Politics People podcast. Thank you. Right, well, stay tuned. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. More to come in the next hour. It's 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio now for the next hour. Me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. Coming up, the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should we cater to everyone's dietary requirements at Christmas? But first, let's get your latest news with Ray.
Thanks, Nana. Good afternoon. It's 5 o'clock. I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Our top stories this hour. One of the UK's richest men has agreed to buy a 25% stake in the football club Manchester United. Billionaire Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who's a lifelong supporter, says he's pleased that a deal has been done and he hopes to unlock its full potential. The move will see around £236 million pumped into the club. The deal also includes responsibility for the management of its operations. Well, police are urging drivers to take extra care on the roads following a number of collisions in the past 24 hours. In Northumbria, there's an appeal for witnesses after 2 teenagers were killed in a crash in Cramlington, and a woman and a teenager died in another incident in Oldham in Greater Manchester. Millions of motorists, of course, are on the roads this weekend. The AA telling drivers to expect lengthy jams as people travel for their Christmas getaways. The Met Office is also warning of the risk of flying debris and power cuts as wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour hit parts of Scotland and northern England. Rail passengers have been dealing with delays and cancellations. Major stations, including Euston, King's Cross and Paddington, have been closed for engineering works. Well, a man has been arrested in connection with the death of a woman in a suspected hit-and-run in Essex. Marie Theobald and her 2 dogs were killed while walking in Chigwell on Friday. In a statement, her family described the 48-year-old as a loving mother and daughter who would do anything for anyone. The Home Secretary has apologised for joking about putting a rape drug in his wife's drinks just hours after announcing plans to crack down on spiking. James Cleverly reportedly joked that he puts a little bit of Rohypnol in his wife's drink every night so that she doesn't realise there are, quote, better men out there. The comments were said to have been made at a Downing Street reception, which are normally off the record, but the Sunday Mirror broke convention and reported it. The Royal Navy is deploying a warship to Guyana as tensions grow with neighbouring Venezuela. The HMS Trent will take part in joint exercises in the region, with the MOD saying that it's part of the government's defence diplomacy. The UK is working with the South American nation to ensure that its territorial integrity is secure after a historical dispute with Venezuela over minerals and oil. Party leaders may be at odds in Parliament, but they are united in spreading festive cheer this year. Now, warning, if you're watching on TV, some of the video we're about to show contains flash photography. In his Christmas message, the Prime Minister offered a promise of a brighter future, while Labour's Sir Keir Starmer said that the story of Jesus is a reminder that in dark times, hope and love are always worth advocating for. Both leaders have thanked frontline and key workers for their service over the Christmas period.
Christmas is a time of peace, joy, compassion, a time of hope and a promise of a better world. And today, as we look ahead, let's keep that promise of a brighter future burning into the new year. Wherever you are, and whatever you are doing for the festivities, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
As communities across Britain gather together for a period of faith and festivities, I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Throughout the Christmas period, we see the bonds of kinship rekindled as families and friends share in the joy, the hope and the optimism that Christmas provides.
The King will deliver his second Christmas message from a room decorated with a living Christmas tree for the first time. A photograph has been released ahead of tomorrow's broadcast. King Charles is a long-term environmental campaigner, so sustainable and natural ornaments are hanging from the tree, which will be replanted at a later date, we're told. You can watch the King's message here on GB News at 3 p.m. on Christmas Day. Tomorrow is set to be the warmest Christmas day in more than a century, with the Met Office saying that temperatures will reach 14 or even 15 degrees. That's after 15.3 was recorded at Heathrow and Sippenham in Berkshire today, making it the warmest Christmas Eve in over 20 years. It means a white Christmas has been ruled out for most of the country, apart from northern Scotland. And Father Christmas is on the move again, delivering presents to children around the world. Now, those of you watching on TV can see the live feed of the NORAD Santa Tracker. The North American Aerospace Defense Command is monitoring his movements, and it shows that he's currently on his way to India. So far, he's delivered well over 2 billion presents. Good work. Now, this is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying, play GB News. Now let's get back to a rather festive Nana.
Thank you, Ray. It's coming up to 6 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next hour, me and my panel will be talking about some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's Director of Car 26 and political commentator Lois Perry, and also former Labour Party MP Simon Danshuk. Still to come for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should we be catering to everyone's dietary preferences at Christmas? As ever, you can get in touch. Email gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet me at gbnews. But of course, I've got a little Christmas message of my own, because I think that we've outflanked ourselves in this time, haven't we, in the most difficult and obstructive Christmas we can actually create. Because in the lead up to it, we've had junior doctors on strike to make sure that anybody who's sick and falls unwell during this time has a hard time. More is promised in the next few days. We've had the rail workers striking to make sure that the shops and entertainment venues suffer financially and the public struggle to get away to see their loved ones at Christmas. We've got pro-Palestinian protesters every weekend, and of course yesterday in the middle of Oxford Street, which was Super Saturday, when retailers make up for time lost as shoppers go out in their droves. I mean, how much more awkward can we collectively make life for ourselves at Christmas? Frankly, I'm fed up, which is why tomorrow I'm looking forward to forgetting it all and spending some time with my beautiful family, because that's what really matters. Because when all is said and done, time is our most expensive, most valuable commodity, and spending it with the people that we love is the most important thing that we can give. So in the lead up to Christmas, thank you for giving me your time, and Merry Christmas. So now to my panel. What do you think? Do you think we have made a mess of ourselves this Christmas? For me, this is the worst one I can remember. Simon Danshuk.
It's been a tough year, actually, hasn't it? And the strike action's been tough on everybody. But and if you notice, it's predominantly the public sector that's going on strike, so holding the public to ransom. And what people don't realise, I mean, it's taxpayers that pay any increase. And I think a little bit more restraint on public sector workers and a bit more productivity from public sector workers might actually be a better solution in 2024. I think more restraint and more productivity in the public sector.
It's interesting how they strike when they want to have time off, isn't it? So, you know, it's like, you know, I'm not having to go at my daughter's school at all, but they always have teacher training on a Friday or a Monday. It's always to maximise the time off that the teachers can have. And it's the same with this. You know, the postal strike, the postal workers going on strike over Christmas, they don't want to be at work because they want to be at home. You know, it's the same with the railways. The people that are hurting are ordinary people.
Yeah.
They're not hurting their paymasters. Well, we are their paymasters.
Yeah,
they're hurting ordinary people, which makes me think they don't really care about ordinary people. My granddad actually thought that the unions were in cahoots with Thatcher. He said they always striked just before a general election, which guaranteed her a massive majority at every election, and he was a Labour man. So.
But don't you think, though, if you kind of look at it, though, you said that you talked about striking as though it's, you know, they're doing it for the holidays, but it seems like they're just trying to make our life as awkward as possible. So every time there's something important like Christmas, the rail workers think, well, they won't be able to get home, so it serves them right. And then you've got the doctors and nurses saying, oh, well, the doctors, actually, the nurses have settled their pay deal. You've got the doctors saying, oh, well, you know, over Christmas, well, the GP is saying don't come to the surgery. And then they're saying we're going to strike when you really need us the most. They know that there's lots of accidents and things like that over Christmas.
It's disgusting.
It's quite disgusting, and we're paying for this.
I'm not being funny, but do not become an NHS doctor or even work in the fire service or even work in the police service if you know, you're there in it for the money. You know, there's a public duty element to it. And how can you strike? I mean, I actually shouted at the strikers outside Southend Hospital.
Did you?
Yeah, I actually wound down the window and said, shame on you. Because are you in it for the money?
Put the patient first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but why shouldn't they be paid properly? They probably observe politicians. They probably observe politicians getting like 86 grand, and then they're awarding themselves another pay rise. Well, their pay review body that's supposedly independent, so the IPS, is it the independent whatever?
They're woke snowflakes.
They're supposed to. They award the MPs, as you know, they award them the pay rise. This year, or next year actually, it'll go up 7.1%, which is in line with inflation a year ago. So then they'll be on about 96,000, which will push them up beyond the further tax bracket and all this. So I would say that the public sector workers are watching this, seeing these MPs and thinking, well, what do you do? Why shouldn't we strike?
Yeah, but some of these public sector workers are paid a lot of money. Some of the train drivers,
do
I know
all
they're
right.
in the private sector.
And the pensions as well.
TfL people, there's some very decent wages, pensions,
Yeah.
where you're retiring early,
Yeah.
especially local authority jobs where you're retiring at a ridiculously low age.
And you can't
nowadays.
be sacked.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
you
impossible to
literally
gotten
can't
rid
be
of.
sacked,
Yeah,
which is why you
absolutely.
have loads of girls in
So-
highly prominent positions because they can't be got rid of.
So it's not so much just that it's the whole...
What do you mean by that? Sorry.
Well, because however useless they are,
But you said
they
loads of
can
girls.
play the girl card.
Yeah, but it's not just girls, is it? It's going to be men as well, boys,
Yeah,
girls,
I know.
whoever.
But if you look in the public sector in extremely prominent positions, especially in social services recently, there's been lots of scandals. It's always a woman at the top of it. You can't get rid of
No,
her.
I don't think that's fair. It's often a man at the top of it as well. They make a mess.
Well, I'm just saying it's almost impossible to sack anyone of any gender or whatever in the public sector.
Yeah.
And they know that. You know.
But on the strikes, the government have introduced legislation to make it harder to strike, haven't they? And that you can't strike at crucial times. Labour are proposing to repeal that, I think I'm right to say.
God. And the net zero stuff.
The next general election. And I think that's a mistake. People are getting exhausted by the strikes and don't feel, in a cost of living crisis, don't feel it's right to be hiking up people's wages. You know, travelling by train is also ludicrously expensive already.
Absurd,
so,
isn't it?
and if salaries go up even more for those working on the railways, we're going to end up having to fork out even more for tickets. I mean,
also-
we can't-
Well, I think the problem with the railways is that they don't want to modernise. Some of them don't want to
No.
modernise as well, which will
It's terms
reduce
and conditions.
the employment, so there'll be fewer people who are employed by the railways. So people will have to lose their jobs in order for it to progress, but also in order to pay people more. And they don't want that either. So it does seem a bit of a
But if they get
sort of tough
everybody out of
position.
their cars now, I mean, we've talked about this so much. I've got my Car 26 hat on at the moment. If they get us in our 15-minute cities, out of our cars and everything, who's going to be making the decisions about what public events go ahead or not? It's going to be the unions. Because if everyone has to get the train, then that means, you know, the RMT, they're making the decisions. The last couple of days of the last day of the Conservative conference in Manchester, I had to go back a day early, actually, but because, you know, the trains decided to strike.
On purpose.
So, on purpose.
Yeah, yeah.
So, look,
Yeah, I
you know,
remember.
I can see why they've done it. They think, you know, but if we don't have our own private transportation, that means that people like me, people like that in the past and currently hold the power.
And if you think it's bad now under Conservative government, when you have a Labour government...
Oh, my God.
I don't think the strikes... Well,
You're saying this is a former Labour guy.
But I understand the trade unions, and I always try and say what I think is best for the country, not tribally what is best for my party.
My granddad said they were absolute yobs.
Yeah.
And he was a socialist.
Some of the trade unions.
Yeah, he said they were yobs.
But they'll hold Labour to account.
Well, they will do, and they have
what they've paid in.
They've got quite a big stake in it as well. Look, I don't know about you, but I'm concerned for a Labour government only because of what I'm seeing now, holding the country to ransom, and the fact that they'll have so much power. They've already got enough power as it is, and this whole this whole last 6 months has been dominated by striking, and it's all at the detriment of us, the public. But anyway, what do you think? GBViews at gbnews.com. Tweet me at GBNews. But now, 3 amazing prizes that are guaranteed to be won by one lucky viewer in our great giveaway. £10,000 cash, tech and vouchers. If you haven't already entered, why on earth not? It's really easy. Have a look at this.
This is your chance to win cash, treats and tech in our very first Great British giveaway. There's a totally tax-free £10,000 cash up for grabs. Cash which would help make 2024 a whole lot better. We're also going to send you shopping with £500 worth of vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. What would be on your shopping list? If it's a new iPhone, we've also got that covered too, with the latest iPhone 15 Pro Max, which you'll also receive. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB01 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 5th of January. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Right, so time is running out to enter, so get on with it. It's coming up to 16 minutes after 5 o'clock. On the way, the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should we be catering to everyone's dietary preferences at Christmas? You won't want to miss it.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews at gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? It's coming up to 20 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's time now, though, for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should we be catering to everyone's dietary preferences at Christmas? In these days, we've got the vegetarians, you've got the vegans, the lactose-free. Of course, you've got people who can't take any gluten at all. Honestly, you've got the nut avoiders. It just goes on, doesn't it? But what does that leave us? A bit of tofu and cabbage? There might be certain niceties, but they can also ruin the fundamentals of a good Christmas dinner. Some of us will be cooking for large families, so it's fair to impact everyone else's. Is it fair to impact everyone else's food? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should we be catering to everyone's dietary preferences at Christmas? So joining me to debate this matter is comedian Leo Kearse, nutritionist Jenna Hope, presenter of Fat Families Steve Miller, and also comedian Lewis Schaefer. Right, so there you go. Lewis, you're looking off camera, you're over here.
All right, there you go.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Leo.
No, there you go. Right, I'm going to start with you, Steve Miller, Fat Families. I used to love that show, Steve. And Secret Eaters was one of my favourites as well. What do you think?
Well, I think that we use a bit of common sense. So if someone has a medical issue and they're gluten, for example, gluten-free, then that is to be respected. But listen, bluntly put, Christmas Day is about stuffing in whatever you want to stuff in without any worries. So if you've got some old misery that's on a diet, well, they're going to have to get over it, right? Because I tell you what, it's the one day of the year that I just eat exactly what I want to eat. I really do. And it's the one day of the year where I cannot wait to eat the bird. I cannot wait with all those trimmings. Seriously love it. So, yes, I think we have to just use a bit of common sense.
Because some people, there was a TV personality who recently treated celiac disease with some would say that it was quite insensitive. I'm going to come to you, Leo Kearse. What do you think?
I think, my worry is that the human race as a species, we've stopped evolving. Like thousands of years ago, if you couldn't eat gluten or lactose, you would have just died because, you catch a mammoth. If you can't eat that mammoth, you die. So I think we need to bring that back. I think if you can't eat a turkey and if you can't eat cranberry sauce, then you die at Christmas.
Lewis Schaefer, what do you think?
I think I agree. I agree with Leo, but the point is, it's about being nice. Leo's not a nice person, but Lewis Schaefer is and the people know this. They know, looking at me, is that it's one day a year. Your family should cater for you and your needs. It shouldn't be screw you. It's not a screw you day. It's a lovely day. Not that I've ever experienced it with my family.
Jenna Hope.
Yes, I have to say I agree with Lewis. I think that we all have different dietary requirements and Christmas should be inclusive for everyone. So if you can cater for those that you're hosting, then definitely you should try.
Do you think? Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of people getting very stressed about it, though, because, you know, somebody doesn't eat gluten. Obviously, I think celiac disease is very serious, unlike some other people who didn't think it was, and treated it almost with some sort of contempt, which wasn't great. But I do think, I mean, I used to go out with this one guy, and he wasn't gluten intolerant at all, but he'd go to restaurants, he'd order something, and then they'd bring it to him, and he'd go, "It's got gluten in it." And I think he sort of enjoyed the attention that he got when everyone went, "Oh, sorry, sir, sorry, sir." And there's nothing wrong with him. He could eat gluten. In the end, I tried to eat the same sort of thing with him. It gave me the runs and all sorts of things. I don't want to talk about it. They give too much detail. But I won't be doing that again. And he reverted back to eating normal food. Steve, there's a lot of that about, isn't there? People saying they don't want to eat, they can't eat this, when they can, really. They're just some sort of fad.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Listen, we've got a lot of drama queens out there, a lot of drama queens who say they're this, they're that, and the other with all these intolerances. And frankly, it's a load of old tosh, if I'm really honest. Don't get me wrong, if someone's checked with their doctor and they've had lots of tests, then we've got to accommodate for them. I get that. But a lot of people seem to get off on it. You know what I mean? They go to the restaurants and it's like, oh, I can't have that, I can't have this, I can't have the other. And when I get people coming to my place, and saying all that, often I just serve what they get what they're given, and that's it. And if it's got gluten in it, it's got gluten in it. They don't seem to have a problem. Yeah, I think people love to moan and be victims and all of that sort of stuff. You know, I think tomorrow you just shove it in, eat what you want, and drink and be merry. That's what it should be all about.
Well, see, that's how I feel about it. Leo, what's your view, though, on that? I mean, obviously, celiac disease is serious. That's something totally different, and, you know, you've got to be very careful. But do you not think a lot of people are just a bit in this whole fad of it all? And actually, a little bit of meat, even if you are a vegetarian or a vegan, every now and again, you should really just eat some of it.
Yeah, celiac disease is serious. That's allergy to celery. So, you know, definitely hide the celery this Christmas. But a lot of this stuff, it is just, you know, like everybody wants to be special now. I think it's a social media trend. So everybody's got pronouns and things like that. Everybody's got their own special sexuality. And, you know, there's 482 genders. Like, I grew up in the 80s. We had 4 TV channels. And we needed 2 TV guys just for that. I think, you know, people are, everybody wants their own individual, wants to be catered for in their own special way. And it's the same with food. People have, you know, can pick and choose all these different eating requirements. But I bet if you stuck them on a desert island and they were starving to death, they'd suddenly find they could actually eat celery.
Yeah, well, I remember there was this show on TV where they took people who were very fussy about their food and some of them quite overweight. They took them, I think they trekked the desert and they were given all sorts of different things to eat. And they had said, oh, I don't eat snake. I wouldn't eat this, that and the other. But obviously, in the desert where they were starving, they ate it. And they went, oh, actually, this is really quite nice. You'd probably eat snake, wouldn't you, Lewis?
Yeah, snake. It's part of my carnivore diet. I think you're wrong, Leo, and I agree with you, Nana. But because some of these diseases that people have, we're not meant to be eating gluten. We're not meant to be eating grain. We're not meant to be eating any plants at all. But if somebody wants to eat plants, if they want to have Brussels sprouts, let them have Brussels sprouts. So you can't say no to them on one day of the year. You can't say, oh, this is the food that you're getting, you know.
Can I just point out, Lewis says that he only ever eats meat and sometimes some dairy. I caught him eating Cheerios out of a mug.
That is a lie. That is a lie. Nana, that's a lie. He's always had it in for me.
But you had cake the other time, Lewis. I mean, remember that time I had cake, you ate cake as well. You said you don't eat cake, you had cake as well.
Yeah, but I didn't want to be rude to myself by denying it.
I get it. Jenna, with these diets, some of them are, you have to be almost like a nutritionist to be able to do them. So like people who claim to be vegans, for example, that diet does annoy me a little bit. I do find a lot of people who are vegan somewhat preachy about it. You know what I mean? Are actually some of these quite unsafe?
Absolutely. Some of the diets are really unsafe. And Nana, you're absolutely right when I think people do shout about it and some people love to have a lot of attention over what they can and can't eat. Having said that, there are definitely cases where people, maybe they have been diagnosed with something like lactose intolerance, where they cannot eat adequate amounts of dairy, and if there is a lot of dairy in the food, then actually they are going to reap the consequences. Having said that, though, there was recent research by Milkaid which showed that 30% of people with a lactose intolerance actually didn't want to tell their hosts because they were too embarrassed about it. So sometimes what we tend to find is those with the issues that can actually affect them are less likely to shout about it, whereas those who, you know, maybe they just want a little bit of attention or like to change their dietary preferences week on week, actually they tend to shout about it the most.
What's your diet like, Jenna? Do you eat everything, or are you vegan or something, or...?
I'm not a vegan, you'll be pleased to know. Really,
God.
I believe in a healthy, balanced diet with lots of different fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, etc. And yes, I will absolutely be enjoying a glass of wine or two tomorrow, for sure.
And Steve, to you, what advice would you give to people eating this Christmas? Because when I used to be a trainer, the reason I'm not a personal trainer anymore is because I was too brutally honest, which didn't work well for me. But what advice would you give to people as they're going about their business? Because some people are being very conscious about their weight, even now, during Christmas time.
Forget it. No. I say forget it. I say eat, drink, and be very, very merry over this period. And that's how we should live in 2024. You should live 80-20, so you're eating well 80% of the time and maybe, you know, having something what you fancy for 20% of the time. The next few days are all about 20%. Eat, drink, be merry. Yes, behave yourself as much as you can do. And yes, get your jaws into what you want to nibble. I say enjoy it. Yes, don't worry about what you swallow.
Yeah, oh, nice. Thank you for that. I think on that bombshell, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much to Steve Miller from Fat Families, Leo Curse, Lewis Schaefer, and also Jenna Hope. Thank you so much. Lovely to talk to you. Happy Christmas. Yes. So what do you think, then? Do you think we should be really catering for people, or perhaps they should bring their own food? This is GBNews on TV, online and on digital radio, probably why I'm sort of spending it alone with my children. Nobody wants to spend it with me. Coming up, we'll continue with the Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, should we be catering to everyone's dietary preferences at Christmas? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, Lois Perry and Simon Danshuk. But first, let's get your latest news with Ray.
Thanks, Nana. It's 5:30, our top stories. One of the UK's richest men has agreed to buy a 25% stake in Manchester United. Billionaire and Ineos chairman Sir Jim Ratcliffe says he wants Man United to go back to the very top of English, European and world football. The move will see around £236 million pumped into the club. The deal also includes the responsibility of managing its operations. Well, police are urging drivers to take extra care on the roads following a number of collisions in the past 24 hours. In Northumbria, there's an appeal for witnesses after 2 teens were killed in a crash in Cramlington, and a woman and a teenager died in another incident in Oldham in Greater Manchester. Millions of motorists have been on the roads this weekend, the AA telling drivers to expect lengthy jams in some places as people travel for their Christmas getaways. The Met Office is also warning of the risk of flying debris and power cuts, with wind gusts of up to 70 miles per hour hitting parts of Scotland and northern England. Rail passengers have also been dealing with delays and cancellations, with major London stations, Euston, King's Cross and Paddington, closed for engineering works. A man has been arrested in connection with the death of Marie Theobald. The 48-year-old and her 2 dogs were killed in a suspected hit-and-run while walking in Chigwell on Friday. In a statement, her family described her as a loving mother and daughter who would do anything for anyone. And tomorrow is set to be the warmest Christmas day in more than a century, with the Met Office saying that temperatures will reach 14 or even 15 degrees. That's after 15.3 degrees was recorded at Heathrow and Sippenham in Berkshire today, making it the warmest Christmas Eve in over 20 years. It means a white Christmas has been ruled out for most of the country, apart from northern Scotland. You'll find more on all of those stories on our website, gbnews.com. Now, let's get straight back to Nana.
OK, 32 minutes after 5 o'clock. Welcome on board if you just tuned in. Where have you been? On the way next, we'll be weighing up the pros and cons with regard to eating in our Great British Debate this hour. But plus, we'll also be going through some of the smaller stories that caught our eye in Supplement Sunday. Don't go anywhere.
night.
Get up!
This Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, wake up with GB News.
For the finest festive start to your Christmas for you and the whole family.
Christmas breakfast on GB News, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day from 6 a.m.
I got you this.
Oh, good. OK, I got you a little something.
Oh, I'm sure it's nice.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
37 minutes after 5 o'clock. Welcome on board. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's time now for our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should we be catering to everyone's dietary preferences at Christmas? I mean, these days we've got vegetarians, you've got the vegans, you've got the lactose-frees, you've got the nut avoiders. It's just, it's unbelievable, isn't it? But what does it leave us? A bit of tofu and cabbage? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should we be catering for everyone's dietary preferences at this time? Let's see what my panel make of that. Joining me to discuss, Simon Danshuk and Lois Perry. Lois Perry.
Oh,
Christmas is hard enough, isn't it, Nana? I don't know. I imagine in your family, you're probably the one that everyone comes to, and it's the same with me.
Nobody comes to my house.
Oh, nobody comes to your house.
I don't want them there. I don't want them there. They don't.
You don't want them there. All right. Well, everyone comes to me. It skips a generation. My grandparents brought me up, and it skipped a generation, and people come to me. Christmas is hard enough. Come on. Someone's saying they don't eat this and they don't eat that. Get a grip. Unless you're a celiac and you are literally going to drop dead, you eat what's on your plate. You know, there's two options. Take it or leave it.
I don't agree with that.
But don't you think we've become a bit... I know I'm this and I'm that and I don't eat this and I don't eat... So in the end, I mean, if this was the time just after the war when you just got your food and you ate your rations, there was none of this nonsense going on. You know what I mean? Simon, you don't agree.
It's not just after the war. I don't agree with you at all, Lois.
Okay.
And one reason I don't agree, I've just got married, haven't I? And my good lady, she's a pescatarian, so she doesn't eat meat.
Oh, that's all right.
So,
fish is good, though.
Yeah, fish is good.
Yeah, that's all right.
so tomorrow we're going to have turkey and then she's going to have salmon. So you've got to accommodate.
Oh, no, to be fair, she can have vegetarian option. Yeah. But I'm just saying, you know, when people say, oh, I don't eat certain ingredients that are in the general cooking.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So you're going to do the roast, you can do... Because, I mean, then... Because the problem is you've got somebody who's there, I don't eat gluten, which I understand if you're a celiac, that's fair enough. But if you're not, and you're saying it because, I just don't eat it, I've decided, and there's a lot of people out there like that.
Attention seekers.
Yeah. one of my exes was like that. I don't eat gluten, and I'd be like... Really, but you just take that, it's got gluten. But it just has... We'd go out and it'd be like, I'm not going to eat...
Something to complain.
He'd order it, then he'd go, then he'd go, it's got gluten in it, I can't eat it.
Do you know what? Those kind of men are like the women that love being pregnant, yeah? Because they don't get attention otherwise, yeah? OK? You know, like women who love being pregnant because no one looks at them otherwise, right? It's the same, the men that say that they're gluten-free, get a grip. Unless you're going to drop dead, right?
Unless there's something, because I do agree. I mean, if you've got celiac disease, that's a whole different ball game. You've got something. There's some genuine reason, then I get it. But a lot of people are just
serve it to them, and then they can decide whether they're going to eat it or not. They go hungry otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's a lot of because you've got to be careful with cross-contamination. And again, like I say, this is not about people who are who'd be seriously ill with this without having that.
We're talking
about this is about a fashionable trend of people who are saying, I don't eat this, I don't eat that, and don't eat this, and actually it almost trivialises the really serious conditions that people have when they cannot eat a certain food group.
I'll tell you what we've noticed with Coco. She's come over from Rwanda. She's been here 3 months.
You've only mentioned her 4,000 times in the last hour.
We've been married,
you know what? You need to work on that.
Yeah, no, she eats processed food. She's always eaten proper home-cooked food in Rwanda.
Yeah, of course.
When she's come here, she started eating some processed food, and it makes her unwell. Do you know what I mean? 'Cause it's got just because she can feel it. You know, she has a bad stomach because it's got stuff in it. You know?
What kind of food would she not eat that's processed that you would cook?
Well, she's just... she won't let me cook. That's the other issue.
I don't blame her.
You're living the dream, Simon!
I bet she's a good cook, though.
She's a very good cook, yeah. But everything's made fresh, that's the point.
Well, see, that's how I cook. I don't like... I remember one guy told me...
I bet you were the same, yeah.
Well, I'm very simple with my cooking, and one guy goes to me, oh, your food is very simple. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Because it looks like the food, it is like a fish, it looks like a fish. The potatoes are potatoes, this is broccoli, this is...
Proper food.
It's you know, all the stuff I've made myself, or it's just nothing's happened to it. Yeah, that's like Coco as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think having been raised by older people, I do... obviously, a lot of my things are probably slightly out of date, you know, but that's all right, so what? But, yeah, the whole thing about not wasting food, you know, like it or lump it, to a certain extent.
Yeah. Cooking from fresh.
And absolutely, yeah.
I think the worst thing, I think one of the worst things is veganism. I think that's bad. And I only think it's bad because of the fact that a lot of the food that the vegans are eating are processed stuff. So it doesn't have any of the things, it doesn't have meat and this and dairy. But what they're using instead of dairy is usually oil. So it's lots of vegetable oils which are high in omega-6 and 9, which are inflammatory, when you really want omega-3, which is it's not inflammatory, it's good for you, fish oils and things like that, which you can get naturally. And I think that a lot of the time a lot of these diets are not healthy because you need to be a nutritionist, literally, to do that properly.
And it's not natural to be a vegan, is it?
We've got incisors because we're carnivores.
Let's see them, Lois.
The devil! That looked very, very wrong, actually. That didn't look... I'm sorry about about that.
I've got them as well.
You're right. The whole vegan thing, and it's quite interesting actually. Apparently, they're going to the protein powder, which is made from
milk,
milled worms and things like that, is actually going to be put in vegan food. So it's not even vegan. It's not even vegan.
Well, listen, this show's nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voices. Their opportunity to be on the show and tell us what they think about the topics that we're discussing. I've only got 3 of you today. Oh, look at them. Look at them. You can find this in the middle. David Balm, you're the nearest. I'm going to start with you. David, go for it. What do you think about all this? Kato, you've got a big family, haven't you?
Well, I have a problem. I'm actually wheat intolerant, so we have to have different things. But courtesy says, actually, if you invite somebody over for a meal, you find out if they've got any problems, dietary problems. We made a mistake years and years ago. Well, my wife did. We had some friends over for dinner. She made this beautiful mushroom ala garec and a mushroom risotto, and forgot to ask, because one of our friends actually has an intolerance to mushrooms. He was not very pleased. So it's running around the kitchen trying to find something so that he could eat. So I think courtesy says yes. If you are going somewhere you have an intolerance, as I say, I'm wheat intolerant, just say to them, look, is there any chance there's going to be something in there, or shall I just bring something myself?
Exactly. Bring your own food. Bring your own food, you party pooper. No, that's not fair. Right, Philip Hoy, he's there in Hertfordshire, dressed as Father Christmas. Philip.
Hi, Nana. Yeah, I thought I'd try and dress up for the occasion.
That's good. Didn't recognise you there. Didn't recognise you.
Still me. Anyway, my view is this. I don't mind what people want to eat, but don't try and impose your views on me. I'm a meat eater. To me, Christmas dinner is turkey with all the trimmings, and I love it. Funnily enough, I'm actually allergic to chicken. Yes, I really am allergic to chicken, and I'll be very, very ill if I have it. I've always been allergic. And so that causes problems, but I always tell people that, and therefore I never have it. My youngest son my grandson, he's a vegetarian for good reasons. He for passionate reasons. And so whenever we go over there, we always have vegetarian meals, and we put up with it. But
is that nut roast?
If he came to us,
is it like a nut roast that you have there?
Well, yeah, I mean, he has all sorts of things, pasta and things like that.
God. When you go there, do you think, no.
I love pasta, provided it's got lots of meat in it, but anyway.
You just bring in like a thing of meat with it and just chuck it in there.
But I do accept that some people, for real intolerance, food intolerances, you have to go along with it. But there are too many people. I completely agree with everything you've been saying this afternoon. It's just posh now to say, I can't eat this.
I can't eat dairy. Yes, you can. You've just eaten a cake with cream on it. Like I have to be honest, I am guilty myself. I shouldn't eat dairy because it gives me a bit of but I can eat dairy. Yeah. But I sometimes say I don't do dairy, and it's lies, because I'm going to go home, I've got myself some cream, I've got this wonderful log cake, I can't wait to stuff my face with that. That is going to go down nicely. Right, let's go over to Adrian Jell in Shropshire. Adrian! Sorry.
Christmas good. I mean, a lot of families, they go to a lot of effort to put together a really nice meal for their family and everybody that's turning up. You can't expect them to turn their home into a flipping restaurant for the day. They a fantastic meal for you, and you should just take it and eat what you're given, unless, as Lois said, you've got a medical problem like celiac disease. But to expect somebody to just do a little thing for you it's absolutely ridiculous.
I love this bloke.
It's become so much. It's part of the me culture, isn't it? It's, oh, well, I'm going to eat something different because I don't like this or I don't like that. Get a grip, for heaven's sake.
New Home Secretary, this guy.
Right. Eat your, and if you don't like it, don't eat it.
Don't eat it.
But at least be grateful and be part of the party. Stop thinking about yourself. That's what I was saying on the matter.
Yeah, well, listen, I love you guys. You've been hilarious. Thank you so much. David Balm in Watford, Philip Hoy in Hertfordshire, and also Adrian Gell in Shropshire. Happy Christmas. Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to talk to you. Right, so now we were talking earlier on the show about spiking women. The results are in, and yes, 33% of you say yes. If I'm asking, is it OK to joke about spiking women's drinks? 33% of you say yes, and 66% of you say no. You're with me. But now it's time for Supplement Sunday, the part of the show where my panel discuss some of the other stuff that's hit the headlines. But let's do a quick debate. The worst Christmas present that you've ever had. Simon, Lois. I'm going to start with Lois, actually, because I think yours is going to be bad.
Well, I mean, the worst present I've ever had was on my birthday last year, and it's from a guy that's worth quite a few million quid. And just to put it in context, I actually spent a third of my income, monthly income, on his birthday.
What did he buy you?
He bought me a pound shop toy lobster.
Wow.
For my birthday.
Wow.
He actually, he dropped me home, and I actually closed the door in his face.
Never see him again. He's not generous. No point having money if you don't give it away.
He made up for it, though.
Simon Danchuk.
It was present. One of my ex-wives bought me a shopping voucher for Christmas, and I thought at that stage, this is the end of it.
It's the end of the road. Yeah. Which wife was that?
Well,
Number one, two?
You can't label her. Well, listen, one of my ex-boyfriends, he was incredibly rich. Rich, I remember you, remember me. His name was Rich, he's rich.
Yeah.
I didn't like that present, Rich, just as if you're watching now, you're in America at the moment. A dustbuster. One of the little ones that you plug in. Listen, one that you plug in a charge, and some Altoids, breath mints. Breath mints. Yeah, but that was a birthday present, and that was bad. But the worst Christmas present I ever had was a present from my mother. When I said, Mum, I'm just like, because I was young, I was like, I'm just like turning into a goth. I want everything all black. Just get me stuff that's all black. I was give me black nightie and slippers, and I was expecting her to get a really nice black negligee. She's got taste.
You told her
my mother's got taste, you know, and these slippers and things. She brought me, you know, have you ever watched Wurzel Gummidge? The sort of thing that Aunt Sally would wear. One like that in black. It was horrible. Actually, and these horrible slippers with the fuzzy thing going over the top, and they were flat, nasty, like the ones you get from a hotel. My mum, I think how they laughed. They laughed. But listen, it's time now for Supplement Sunday, where my panel and I discuss some of the news stories that caught our eye. Joining me, Lois Perry and Simon Danchuk. Simon, your story, please.
Oh, well, I haven't been given a story or got one.
Oh, Simon.
But story from this week that caught my eye has got to be around how we celebrate Christmas and what's important to us at Christmas time. And for me, it's very much around Jesus and Christianity, and that's something that we need to remember. And that contrasts with some of the messages from our leaders. So I thought it was interesting that Starmer's statement was big on Christianity, but he's actually an atheist. So I thought there was quite a contrast there. So I thought that was interesting.
You said you told
me. Is he a Hindu?
You said he was an atheist as well.
Well, we don't know. He's not. I think he's a Hindu. Lois, your supplement. Have you got a supplement story that caught your eye this week?
Yeah, I mean, the story that caught my eye this week was the school that in East London actually that tried to do the right thing. So they had kids coming in wearing Palestine stuff, very pro-Hamas stuff, saying very inappropriate things about, you know, what's going on.
How's that the right thing?
Yeah, well, no, the school actually sent a few letters to certain people's parents, and basically then there was a big protest outside. So there seems to be able to be like a renter protest going on at the moment with pro-Hamas, you know, and the school were trying to do the right thing. They said this isn't appropriate.
Everyone can wear whatever, but that's not appropriate, and they wore that. It's just awful, isn't it? My supplement is a parish priest who defends having two mothers of baby Jesus as reflective of modern families.
That really is an immaculate.
So, no, it really is, yeah. So a church nativity scene featuring two mothers of baby Jesus instead of the conventional Mary and Joseph sparked anger in Italy because of it. Nativity scenes is a popular, largely Catholic country, but in recent years they've been increasingly marred in culture wars and all this sort of secular multiculturalism.
And you want to expect that from Italy as well, really. A very Catholic country. Catholic priest, but he decides to have 2 women instead of Mary and Joseph.
I just think the story is of a male and a female. It's not about sexuality. It's just the story. So if you're going to retell the story of baby Jesus, let's not get involved in politics and turn it into some sort of, we must all be inclusive of... That's not the story. That's not how the story went. And whilst we're at it, biologically, if we're going to be realistic, 2 women, whilst they can conceive, they're not going to conceive between each other, although, as you say, it was immaculate conception. So I think the story is a bit... doesn't quite work.
Let's keep it as it is. Yeah, let's keep it as it is.
Well, listen, and finally, joining me in the studio is Josh Howie to tell us about things that are coming up this evening. Josh.
Hello, yes, 9 o'clock till 11 o'clock tonight. I have bought a suit, especially, although
Crikey.
if I'd known, I would have just borrowed your wonderful dress.
I've got another one in there.
I appreciate
that. And you can wear my wig as well.
You look fantastic.
Thank you.
Wig. Come on, are you saying I need a wig? No.
No, but you can wear mine. This is a wig. This is a wig.
And, yeah, we've got fantastic panellists. I've written a couple of monologues. One is very be kind to all of humanity. One is very angry about what we were just talking about the Palestinian protests. And we're going to have how to make wonderful roast potatoes, Christmas economics. It's going to be lots of fun. There's going to be some arguing. I think it's perfect television to wrap presents to.
Lovely, Josh Howie. Thank you very much. 9 o'clock. Make sure you tune into that. Well, I've got to say a huge thank you to you for joining me. Thank you so much to Lois Perry, former Labour MP, Simon Danchuk as well. Thank you to you as well. And a huge thank you to you at home for your company. It's been a pleasure as ever. Listen, I look forward to speaking to you in, well, about 7 days' time when I'm back on Saturday. But I want to wish you all a very happy Christmas. We're wishing you a Merry Christmas from the studio. Merry Christmas to all of you. Have a fabulous time. Stay tuned. Keep it locked to GB News. We'll keep you company throughout this festive period. Take care. I'll see you in a week and have a fabulous Christmas.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather. It's going to stay unsettled through the festive period, though it will turn calmer and drier as we move into Boxing Day. Low pressure currently dominating the weather pattern, bringing further rain for many through Christmas Day, but a brief respite and that ridge of high pressure bringing dry, sunny weather for many on Boxing Day. This evening, a mixed picture out there. Outbreaks of rain across southern counties of England and Wales. Showery rain as well, Northern Ireland, Northern England. In between, clearer spells under the clearest skies of Scotland, turning chilly tonight, some frost and ice. Elsewhere, generally staying mild, and those winds just easing after what has been a very blustery and mild Christmas Eve. Christmas Day gets off to a bright start, a chilly start across north-east Scotland. Elsewhere, generally quite cloudy, and this area of outbreaks of rain pushes north and eastwards across England and Wales through the day, turning heavy at times. Rain bumping into Scotland will turn to snow over the higher ground above about 200 metres. 5 to 10 centimetres is possible, giving a white Christmas here. But elsewhere, wet Christmas, mild as well, and breezy temperatures in double figures. After a cold start Boxing Day morning, it's looking much drier and brighter. Plenty of sunny spells to come, but signs of the next weather system starting to move in across Devon and Cornwall, bringing outbreaks of rain here, and temperatures a little lower for many, but mild air returns as it becomes wet and windy through into Wednesday.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, thank you for being a big part of GB News.
We'd like to wish you and your loved ones a Christmas season full of comfort and joy,
as well as a peaceful and prosperous new year.
From our family
to yours.
We are proud to be your channel.